Wait, where's Susan? Oh, Susan, could you lead us in roll call? Here.
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 Okay. Great. If everybody can please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If I could remind everybody, if you could, just please silence your phones, and if you need to take a phone call, please take it outside. At this time, we're going to, is there any public comments that are not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Okay, we're going to have our first petitions. At this time, I'm going to turn the hearing over to our administrative law judge.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. The first case we're going to call is Andy Alfonso Bastian. Mr. Bastian, if you could come sit to the chair to Mr. Fraley's right. Either chair is fine, whichever you're comfortable. And so your note at the bottom of the microphone, there's a little push button. It's already on? Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and go on the record. Good morning, everyone. We are on the record before the Structural Pest Control Board to review the petition for reinstatement by Andy Alfonso Bastian. This is OAH case number 2020-020-520, and the board's case number is 2018-65. My name is Tiffany King. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings, and I was assigned to preside over this matter. Will all the members of the board please identify themselves for the record, starting with the board member on my farthest right.
Board member Mike Duran, industry member.
Dave Tamayo.
Curtis Good.
Okay, thank you. A quorum of the board is present. If I could please have the appearance of the Deputy Attorney General for the record.
Tim Fraley, Your Honor, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code 11522. No problem.
Thank you. And I will note for the record, Mr. Bastian, you are present and you're representing yourself today. Is that correct?
Yes.
And were you aware that you could have hired counsel to represent you today?
I was aware.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Bastian, before we went on the record this morning, the Deputy Attorney General and I met with you to give you an overview of the process this morning. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, at this time, I would like you to raise your right hand and I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly state, under penalty of perjury, that the evidence you will give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley, I'll turn it over to you for the presentation.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I could approach and have marked as Exhibit 1, the original petition packet with accompanying documents.
Thank you.
The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. Exhibit 1 consists of the following: a February 4th, 2020 letter to petitioner confirming hearing date and time, confirmation from petitioner that he will attend the March 12th, 2020 hearing, an October 3rd, 2019 letter to petitioner with the petition for reinstatement and board's guidelines, the guidelines for petitions for reinstatement, petitioner's petition for reinstatement of revoked license, petitioner's declaration with petition for reinstatement, a request for live scan service form, a copy of the default decision and order in case number 2018-65, effective November 22nd, 2018, a copy of the accusation for case number 2018-65, certification of prosecution costs in that case, and certified declarations regarding petitioner's license history. I'd ask that Exhibit 1 be marked and moved into evidence.
Mr. Bastian, do you have any objection?
No.
Exhibit 1's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. As a summary of the case, company registration certificate number PR5215 in branches 2 and 3 was issued to petitioner on January 18th, 2007. Operator's license number OPR11417 in branch 3 was issued on June 27th, 2016. Petitioner's license was revoked effective November 22nd, 2018 by default decision and order rendered by the board on October 23rd, 2018. The default decision and order was filed as a result of petitioner's failure to file a notice of defense within 15 days after service of the accusation. The accusation, filed on June 14th, 2018, alleged that petitioner violated the Business and Professions Code by 1. Failing to provide proof of continuing education, and 2. Misrepresentation of a material fact on petitioner's June 12th, 2015 license renewal application. The circumstances are as follows. Petitioner submitted a license renewal application for his 2015 renewal that was unsigned and had no number stating how many hours of continuing education he had completed for that term. In response to a request from the board requiring his signature and number of hours to process his renewal, he returned a signed statement under penalty of perjury that he had completed 16 hours, dated June 20th, 2015. On August 1st, 2016, the board sent an audit letter asking petitioner to provide proof of his continuing education credits. Receiving no responses, the board sent additional letters on February 7th, March 30th, September 19th, and December 7th, 2017. On December 26, 2017, a voicemail was left for petitioner regarding the audit and consequences of his failure to respond. As after the default decision and order was entered and became effective, there were prosecution costs that were certified for that. To date, petitioner has not made any payments on those prosecution costs that were ordered. This concludes my presentation of the documentary evidence and case history. I'm prepared to proceed with questions for the petitioner when and if the board would like me to.
Thank you. Mr. Bastian, you had some documents you wanted to provide the
Yes.
board that weren't part of your petition, correct? If you
Yes,
could
I
hand a copy to Mr. Fraley and bring the rest to me.
Sure.
Thank you.
And do I give the rest to you guys?
Please. Thank you. So I'm going to mark as Petitioners Exhibit A. It's a 4-page exhibit regarding certificates of completion. Mr. Fraley, do you have any objection to Petitioners Exhibit A being admitted?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit A is admitted. Okay, Mr. Bastian, you've already been sworn in, and as we discussed off the record, the board members have already reviewed your petition. What they want to hear from you right now is about your rehabilitation and anything you would like to highlight from your petition.
Yes, definitely. And I want to apologize for everything that happened, even some of the stuff that he just mentioned, I wasn't aware of. I was married. My wife was running my office, and we started going through a separation, and I wasn't getting any mail. That's mainly the main thing. I did get calls from the board. I did check with her. She showed me paperwork. Look, I'm going to send in your education. I saw it. She said she sent it in. Didn't send it in. I got more stuff. A lot of the papers that I was receiving saying you're in violation, I wasn't getting. I officially moved out. Still wasn't getting a lot of stuff. I ran my office there out of the house. And the biggest problem was I wasn't getting a lot of it. I did speak, I think, with Melissa when that process was happening. And I remember sending one out, I think even send the original one. And they said they didn't receive it. I called that company again where I did my education. They sent me a copy. In that process, it was kind of a long time ago. So it was kind of when I moved out. And then board, I kind of got some of the letters from my home where I initially lived in, called the board because now it was that June, I think that last one that said they were going to close me down and everything. Called her, started everything. I spoke with Frank Munoz, I believe he was on the board, and he was helping me out to get some
I'm
stuff.
sorry, what was the last name?
Munoz?
Munoz?
Yeah, I spoke with him, and then he kind of was helping me out for a while. That's when I did. He told me to go do the pre-operators. This is what's going to happen. Did that, and by the time I contacted, I don't know if it was Melissa or not, they had to give me a deadline that I didn't know about. And she was like, no, that was last week. I said, but I have all the papers, and that was it. That was the last I heard of it. Now, I am not aware of some penalties that you talked about that I was supposed to pay. That is all brand new to me right now. And that's my case. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And so what you've provided us as Exhibit A, these are the certificates of completion you were talking about?
Yes, the original ones.
Okay. Mr. Fraley, do you have any questions for Mr. Bastian?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank
Yes.
you. Just to reiterate what we talked about earlier, one of the primary functions of the hearing today is to assess rehabilitation from the conduct or behavior that the board has found against you previously. To assess honesty, integrity, character, and other aspects of your duties as a licensed field representative or operator and company registration. So we're not going to relitigate the default, the decision against you. I see that you've brought copies of the continuing education.
Right.
Is this the 16 hours
Yes.
that you would have complied in the 2015?
Those were the hours, yes.
Okay. Now, there were letters that were sent to you basically between the first letter being sent on August 1st, 2016, the accusation being filed and then served on you around June 2018.
Okay.
So I'm wondering, at what point were you not did you believe you were not receiving mail or you were not getting copies of this?
You told me the 2016 first time?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I was getting at them because I remember going back and forth with her, like, are you putting that out? Because it keeps sending me letters. She's like, yes, yes, yes. And I remember physically.
Mr. Bastian, I need you to speak a little bit quieter. We do have a court reporter that's trying to take down everything you're saying.
In regards to 2016, I do remember receiving maybe more than one. And I remember us going back and forth, like, are you sending that letter out? I remember even signing one. And that's kind of the last of it. After that, things got a little bitter, and I wasn't receiving a lot of stuff. I didn't know until that 18 letter, June. That was when kind of I got most of my stuff in boxes, and she kind of threw it like, oh, you're getting letters from the board. And it was like, and I really had nothing to say. We were already separated, and that's when I started following up and everything. And that's when I started contacting Mark Munoz, and he was kind of helping me through the whole process there.
Now, you do understand that as the licensee, regardless of who is receiving your mail, that it's your responsibility.
Yes, and I apologize for that completely. My that's me being irresponsible. I put a lot of trust in her, and I didn't think it was going to end up in that manner. But yes, I take full responsibility on that completely.
And so now going forward, how would you assure the board that you would be responding to future letters, future inquiries?
I will run everything. There's no more wife there, so I will be running everything completely. And I won't think I'll put my trust in anybody like that again.
So you understand now the importance of obviously completing the audit requests and following. Okay.
Believe me, I do.
Okay. Have you worked anywhere since your license was revoked?
Yes, I still have a handyman business.
Okay. And what would your plans, if your license were to be reinstated, what would your plans be?
Go back to the pest control business, the termite business. It's something I've been doing since I was 18, so it's something I've known for a long time.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we're entertaining questions from the board. Mr. Duran, do you have any questions?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You've been in the pest control business since 1992. Is that correct? Or
Yeah.
25 years or
Yeah,
so.
since I was 18.
Okay. And you have gone through continued education courses every 3 years since then.
Every time. This is the only time I've ever had a problem.
Okay. And you had branch 3 license?
Yes.
Okay. Operators or?
Operators.
And you're saying that the reason was that you did get the continued education hours to the Structural Pest Control Board staff is because of family problems, marital problems.
Pretty
That's
much. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tamayo?
Good morning, Mr. Bastian. Since you lost your license, can you tell us anything you've done to keep up with happenings in the pest control industry?
So what I did, all the clients that I did have, I sent them to my old employer, and I do still do repair work. Since with my handyman business, I'm still doing repair work for termite companies. So
Actually, what I was getting at, have you taken any continuing education courses?
That the pre-course operators that Frank Munoz told me to take, and I took it back in 18 when probably 2 months after that June subpoena that they sent me. When I called the board, they told me what to, and he guided me through that, and I went ahead and jumped into that. So the last paper on there would be my pre-operators course in case I have to take that again.
Okay, thank you.
You got it.
Mr. Good?
Good morning, Mr. Baston.
Good morning, Curtis.
I'm finding these certificates. So you're saying on June 23rd, 2015 that you took full 8 hours?
Yes,
That was rules and regulations?
that is the rules and regulations.
Was that an online course or?
Not online. They send you the booklets, and it's an open book, and then you send back all your exams, and then they correct them. You got to pass them at a certain percentage. Then they send me the certificates.
Okay, so then on the very next day, the 24th, you take another 4-hour class?
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. They give it to me, and they give me a time frame to turn it in by a certain time. So I don't know exactly why they put certain dates, but I have the book for about a month before I turn it in, or the courses and the pamphlets that they send me.
Okay, so you attended 4 hours, so you had 2 hours of IPM and just 2 hours of other general. Is that what that
It
is
looks
stating
like
here?
8 hours, 4 hours. Oh yeah, there you go. I see it. Yeah, correct.
Okay, then supposedly on the 25th, we took 4 more hours of branch 3 technical,
Yes,
qualifying you for your 16 hours
correct.
for that June renewal date.
Correct.
Okay, then you submitted another one that you just recently took, August 23rd of 2018.
Yes.
So I know you were without a license. Technically, it was suspended, but
Yeah, I didn't know all that.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's when I called Frank, and that's where he was telling me what to do about everything.
Okay, so on this day, am I reading this correctly? You completed all your renewal period, but it's late now because you would have been required to, if your license hadn't been suspended, to submit another 16 hours
Yes,
because it would have been renewing in June of 2018.
correct.
So this is what the board advised you to take another class?
That's what Frank Munoz told me to do, and then when I did it, I told him I was ready, and then I don't know if Melissa was the last person I spoke with, and she just told me it was a whole different matter. You have to now deal with me, and everything went to her, and by November 1st, I think it was, or November 30th, everything was just, they took the business license away. They
Okay.
revoked it.
But none of this was provided to them?
No, not yet.
Okay,
Frank told me,
because,
I did everything with Frank, and then he told me they're going to be calling you, and then I waited, and I called him, and then he transferred me to Melissa, and then it was a whole other thing. They told me I never got a deadline from him.
okay, so I'm a little
Yeah.
confused because you lost your license. It was suspended in November of 2018, correct?
Yes.
So how is it in August, just a couple months prior, you're taking classes, but you don't have these certificates?
Say that again?
You officially
Right.
lost your license, was suspended or revoked in November of 2018. But just a couple months prior to that, you're having numerous conversations and you're taking classes.
Yes.
And-
'Cause
and communicating with Mr. Munoz, and now you're presenting us with a certificate, but you didn't have it then?
I did. No, actually, I was waiting for the people to send me the copies again because I couldn't find copies, and it took about a month, actually 2 months, because they said they had to go to storage and they charged me extra fees to pull out of their boxes. And then that's when kind of October came around. I told them I had it, and that's when I was dealing with Melissa and everything. And then that's when they told me it was a whole other subject. Like, no, this has nothing to do with education no more. Your license is going to get revoked. And they gave me everything. And after that, like within weeks, everything was just revoked.
Okay, very good.
So it was pretty quick. I mean, not saying Mark was, I don't know if it's Mark or Frank Munoz was helping me out a lot. And then again, I was going through what he was telling me. And then when I don't know if it was Melissa or who I spoke with, they again gave me something different. They said, that's not even the matter. You have to take care of the papers first and everything. And then by that time, my deadline was over.
Okay. So for the petitioners, you had the guidelines for reinstatement. Did you get that whole packet?
I believe so. I just don't have it on me right now. I did get it. I did read it. The one you guys sent me initially.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you read through this petitioner's packet?
I'm sure I did. You might have to remind me of a few things because I don't remember it exactly,
Okay.
word from word.
May you take a look at this?
Yes. Hand it to you. So this is part of the petition packet that was in Exhibit A.
Yes.
Mr. Bastian? And just for the record, this appears to be page 4 of Exhibit A.
That's correct.
Thank you. Excuse me, Exhibit 1.
Okay, I don't think I remember seeing this at all in any of the package.
Okay. My question was going to be, did you complete any of that or bring any other
No, I don't
testimony?
remember seeing this in the last package.
Mr. Bastian, Mr. Bastian,
Yes. I'm sorry.
I need you to allow the board member to finish saying his entire
got it.
question before you answer. And the court reporter can't type
I know, I'm
what
sorry.
two people, but you're doing it to me right now. So I need you, when one of us is speaking, just wait and take a breath before you respond, and that will, you'll know for sure that the question has been finished or the statement's been finished. Thank you. Mr. Good?
So my question was going to be, did you complete any of that on there? And obviously that's probably a no if you don't recall saying it.
No.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Steenwick. Ben Steenwick, sorry.
I just have a couple of questions. So it was mentioned that the company that you qualify as a branch 3 is also a branch 2, correct? Okay. But you only have a branch 3. Who is the branch 2 then?
Albert Bastian, he would be my brother.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, but was he receiving all of the continuing education documentation as far as renewal? Was he receiving all of the renewal documentation from the board at the same time as you?
I'm not sure of it, but I do know he was one of the people that called me and said, what's going on? The board has called me direct for you and what you need to call the board. So right around that June area, and now that you reminded me about that, he was one of the people that said, hey, what's going on? I mean, I'm getting calls from the board.
Okay,
But I don't know if, in regards to your question, yeah, I don't know exactly if he was overlooking that and saw that.
Okay, because if he had received at any point in time, because it looked like there'd been a couple of years,
Right.
if he had received any point in time for renewal documentation, did it not occur to you that you should have received renewal documentation as well? But you know that you now missed out on it?
Let me see if I'm getting the question right. Yes, me and him do our renewals at the same time, every time.
Okay.
So when he gets his books, me and him would do our same studies at the same time. We were receiving them at the same time. If that's what you're asking.
Okay, yeah, it is because I'm trying to think, if you know that you did it together,
Yes.
and he received his, but you didn't receive yours, because you were dealing with the divorce, the separation of your spouse. Why did that not raise a red flag for you to then have to go back to the board and ask, where is yours if he's receiving his?
I received my. I don't know if I'm a little confused about the question, but I did receive my paperwork for the education. I did have it on hand. If that's what you're asking me.
No, because you didn't send in any information to the board that you had.
The education.
Yes.
I did. I know two of them that I sent myself and I double checked and they didn't receive it. That was the second time around. The first one was when my wife did it. And that's the one I signed and she sent it out. And when they called me that they didn't receive it, I sent mine personally and they didn't receive it. And then after that is when kind of all the bitter stuff started to happen.
Okay, very good.
Because there was 2 times where I was on it like, no, wait, they're on me about this. I need it. And then the second time, I physically did that.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board members?
Yes.
Just one other question that I have. You are aware that they have accumulated in time spent and then on your case as of August 29th, 2018, it's a total of $1,045?
I am not aware of that.
Okay. There is that fee that has accumulated. Are you prepared to pay that or have you made any?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if I violated something, I definitely will pay for it.
Okay.
Yes, always have, always will. If anything that I'm responsible for, I will take care of.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, Mr. Fraley, do you have any additional questions?
One question to follow up on what Mr. Good, I think, was asking. Mr. Good, you were asking about the guidelines for petition for reinstatement and whether or not petitioner had received that. Mr. Bastian, if you look at the bottom here, if the board members can, is that your signature?
That is my signature.
And Mr. Fraley, can you identify what document you're looking at? Or
I'm looking at the same document, the guidelines for petitions for reinstatement or reduction of penalty.
the
This was
second
part of-
page?
Yes, this was part of the October 3rd, 2019 letter to Mr. Bastian.
Oh, I did receive it if I have a signature in it. Yeah,
and this
definitely.
was
I just don't
returned-
remember it. at all.
Mr. Bastian, I have one speaker at a time. Thank you.
Right, and then this would have been returned to the board signed with the also the agreement to appear on the date, if that can clarify.
Thank you.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Bastian, is there any final statement you would like to make to the board?
I don't remember seeing this and reading it, but if I signed it, I must have got it with the pamphlet of when they did send me the whole package to return everything to get my license back.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't remember seeing it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further, Mr. Fraley?
Yes, Your Honor. In conclusion, the burden of the proof for petitions is on the petitioner under Government Code Section 11522, not the board. The standard of proof for petitions for reinstatement is clear and convincing evidence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That does conclude the petition hearing in this matter. The record is closed. The case is submitted, and we can go off the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Bastian.
You guys need anything else from me? No?
No,
Thank
sir,
you.
you're free to go. Oh, I'm sorry, Vicki, I forgot that part.
Oh, sure. Is this okay?
We're ready to call the next case then? Our next case is Christopher Craig. Mr. Craig, if you could please come up to the table here. Let's go ahead and go on the record. Good morning, everyone. We are on the record before the Structural Pest Control Board to review the petition for reinstatement by Christopher Joseph Craig. This is OAH case number 2020-020-543. The board's case number is 2017-37. My name is Tiffany King. I am an administrative law judge with the Office of Administrative Hearings who is assigned to preside over this matter. The board members previously identified themselves for the record, and we do have a quorum present. Mr. Fraley, if you could state your appearance for the record, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Tim Fraley, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code 11522.
Thank you. And Mr. Craig, I will note that you're present and representing yourself today. Is that correct?
That is correct, Your Honor.
And were you aware that you could have hired an attorney at your own expense to represent you?
I was aware.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Craig, you were also present this morning when I met with you and the other petitioner to review the process and how we're going to proceed this morning. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. At this time, Mr. Craig, I'd like to swear you in. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state, under penalty of perjury, that the evidence you will give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I might approach and then mark as Exhibit 1 the original petition packet with accompanying documents.
Please, thank you.
The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of the exhibit. Exhibit 1 consists of the following: February 4th, 2020 letter to petitioner confirming the hearing date and time, confirmation from petitioner that he will attend the March 12th, 2020 hearing, a January 10th, 2020 letter to petitioner with petition for reinstatement and the board's guidelines, the guidelines for petitions for reinstatement, petitioner's petition for reinstatement of revoked license, petitioner's declaration with petition for reinstatement, decision in order in case number 2017-37, accusation number 2017-37, memorandum dated February 13th, 2020 from disciplinary analyst Melissa Sowers-Roberts to board members regarding status of costs reimbursement to the board from petitioner, and then the certified declarations regarding petitioner's license history.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would ask for Exhibit 1 to be marked and moved into evidence.
Mr. Craig, do you have any objection?
I do not.
Exhibit 1's admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. And in summary of this case, petitioner was issued on June 27th, 2016, field representative license FR 51975 in branch 2, applicator license number RA 57545 in branches 2 and 3 was issued on November 2nd, 2015. On June 27th, 2016, that license was downgraded to include branch 3 only due to the issuance of the branch 2 field representative's license. Petitioner has also was issued applicator's license number RA 14301 in branch 2 on March 22nd, 2000. That license was canceled on March 22nd, 2003 due to non-renewal. Petitioner's license was revoked on November 16th, 2017 by decision adopted by the board on October 17, 2017. The revocation was based upon an accusation filed January 1st, 2017. That decision found that the petitioner had violated the Business and Professions Code by 1, pleading no contest to a substantially related crime, in which petitioner was convicted on January 14th, 2016. The conviction was entitled People versus Christopher Joseph Craig in Superior Court of Shasta County, case number 15-06852. The conviction included counts of felony embezzlement, a violation of Penal Code Section 503, and misdemeanor grand theft of personal property under $950 in violation of Penal Code Section 487, Subdivision A. The circumstances of the crime were that on or about September 4th, 2015, petitioner embezzled over $11,000 from his employer, McDonald's, where he had been manager since November 2014. As a result of petitioner's plea, he was sentenced to serve 90 days in jail, which sentence was stayed pending restitution payments. Petitioner was also placed on 3 years of formal probation in order to pay $11,277.27 in restitution and other fines and penalties. Additionally, the accusation alleged a violation of Code Section 8637, Misrepresentation of Material Fact. On his application for Structural Pest Control Board Field Representative Examination, petitioner failed to disclose the conviction of January 14, 2016. Additionally, on his application for Field Representative's license dated May 22, 2016, petitioner again failed to disclose that conviction. On both applications, he answered no and certified under penalty of perjury the question of whether he has ever been convicted of, pled guilty, or no contest to any offense in the United States or a foreign country. As a result of the decision, all of petitioner's licenses were revoked and costs of $1,947.50 were ordered to be made prior to filing an application for reinstatement or reissuance. As of the date of the hearing, petitioner has not made any payment of costs to the boards. This concludes my presentation of the documentary evidence and the case history. I'm prepared to proceed with questions to the petitioner if and when the board would like me to.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, you had some documents you wanted to provide to the board members, correct?
Yes,
If you could bring those up here now. Thank you. Okay, so you have 2 packets here and then 1 packet for Mr. Fraley? Okay, so the first document, which I will mark as Petitioners Exhibit A, is a March 9, 2020 letter. I'm sorry, it's a statement authored by you and signed by you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm marking as Petitioners Exhibit B a March 1st, 2020 letter from Steve Klepp, or is it Kleppy?
Lippy.
It's KLEPPE from Hunter Services, Commercial and Residential. Marking as Petitioners Exhibit C, a January 14, 2020 letter from the Shasta County Probation Department signed by Curtis Capella. Curtis is with a K-U-R-T-I-S, Capella, C-A-P-E-L-L-A. Marking as Petitioners D, it's a March 8, 2020 letter from, is it Eva?
Eva.
Eva?
Eva, yes,
Eva
ma'am.
Craig?
Your Honor, I don't have a copy of what's being marked as Exhibit D.
Of which one?
Exhibit D. And I don't know if Exhibit A has 2 pages or not, but I just have 1 page.
So Exhibit A does have 2 pages. The second page has Mr. Craig's signature on it.
I just have 1 page unsigned.
Mr. Craig, do you have any additional?
I do not. I apologize.
Well, what I'd like to do is we're going to continue to mark the exhibits, and then I'd like to go off the record for a couple of minutes since I don't have enough copies for the board members. They can review their exhibits. You can review the exhibits in case there's any questions about them.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Marking as Petitioners Exhibit E, it's an undated letter from Cordell D. Stahl, S-T-A-H-L, from Hunter Services, Commercial and Residential. And finally, marking as Exhibit F. It's also an undated letter from Nicole, Nicolee, Nicholee. Is that Nicole or is that
Nicolai.
Nicolee? Okay. Stahl, Stahl. Okay. And that's the total of all your exhibits, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So let's go off the record for a brief time to allow the board members and Mr. Fraley to review the exhibits. Thank you. We're off the record. Okay, so if you want, I can hand you the copies that I have. That would be wonderful. He has a full set there. Do you have a full set with you, Mr.
I
Fraley?
do. I just have my
You
statement.
just have your statement. Okay. Okay. You got a chance to review it? Okay, thank you.
Page 2 of Exhibit A and Exhibit D in whole.
you're missing papers. I'm gonna make the whole package. So we're need 5 copies and we're missing that one here too. So she's gonna make copies right now. Did you have Exhibit D? Okay. Thank you. Just let me know when we're ready to go. Good to go? Okay. Let's go ahead and go back on the record. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We are back on the record. Mr. Fraley, do you have any objections to my admitting Exhibit A?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Exhibit A is admitted. And is there any objection to Exhibits B through F being admitted as administrative hearsay?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibits B through F are so admitted. Okay, Mr. Craig, I turn the floor back over to you.
Yeah, I'm here to request that my license be reinstated. I feel that prior to the criminal actions in question here and my license being revoked, I did a shameful act. I regret everything that I did there, and I've been working hard to make things right as best that I can. It's given me an opportunity and really opened my eyes since I've lost my license and caused that action, to really recognize the toxic situations that I was in. I've been able to learn, grow, to allow myself to separate myself from those factors. I've sought counsel through my mom and stepdad, family counseling, with my employer, and realized that I have a safety net that was probably there all along that I didn't realize I had. Continuously trying to work and support my family, but I've also completed the 3 years of probation through Shasta County successfully. I've had zero negative encounters with the probation department or with any law enforcement. Restitution was paid monthly, which was a requirement of probation. So that was all taken care of as well. So I can at least financially, make things right. It doesn't make things right with morally. Put myself back in the church functions, volunteering for Coach Little League. I try to take younger employees or friends that may be having issues under my wing, kind of mentor them. I mean, I've been through divorces and child custody, so I'm able to kind of lead them in the right direction. But really, it's given me an open eye to help others when in need, and I've taken that step back, and I'm just trying to open things up and get my life back on track again.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Craig, again, I said this previously, but one of the primary functions of the hearing today is to assess the rehabilitation from the conduct or behavior that was in the accusation the board found against you, to assess the honesty, integrity, character, other aspects of you which are related to the duties of your license, of the potential license. So we're not here to relitigate the previous, the past, but to assess current fitness right now to practice if your license is reinstated. So I think you touched on it, but I just wanted to clarify. Have you made full payment of restitution?
I have, yes.
And also the penalties, any fines that have been that were assessed by the court?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the nature of the crime, the embezzlement that you were convicted for, that was that related to taking money from deposits for the McDonald's?
Yes, it was.
And what did you use the money from the deposits for?
All different factors of when I was having trouble financially, whether it be bills or car payments.
Okay. And in total, the amount that you took from the McDonald's employer, that was $11,277.27.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Now, at your hearing for your license, you testified that I think there's a quote in the decision that says, regarding whether or not you took the money from McDonald's, you said, "In all honesty, I did not do that," and then explained that the director of operations for McDonald's had made attempts with your wife. And I'm wondering, is that still your position today? Is that what happened?
The attempts with my wife did still happen, but the position as far as the crime in question there, that's not my position, no. It's something that prior to that I have a completely clean record, so this is something that's embarrassing, it's shameful. Still to this day I don't want to admit that I did it, but it was hard for me to admit that.
Okay, but you do admit that?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay, and do you take full responsibility for the actions there?
Yes, sir.
Now, looking at the exhibits that you've provided today, I note that exhibits B, E, and F are all from employees or owners, I guess, of Hunter's Services. Is that your current employer?
Yes, it is.
And was Hunter's Services your employer at the time of the revocation of your license as well?
Yes, they were.
And so you've continued as an employee through the loss of your license, and you're currently an employee with Hunter Services?
Yes, I am.
And in fact, three people associated, the two owners, wrote letters to recommend you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Were the owners and the manager of Hunter Services, are they aware of what you were convicted of previously?
Yes, they are.
They're aware of the nature of the crime, the embezzlement?
Yes, they are.
And they wrote the letters?
Yes.
On your behalf? Okay. If your license were to be reinstated, what would be your plans?
When the license was revoked, excuse me, I was able to stay employed with Hunter Services, but in a different aspect and different department. And really, my passion is in the pest industry, so I'd love to get back into that aspect of the company.
Okay.
Ready? Continue. Was that your full answer, sir?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Fraley?
And so your plan would be to continue to work at Hunter Services, but in a different capacity.
Correct.
Now, as a result of the decision, there were costs that were found in the amount of $1,947.50. Would you be able to pay that for your license to be reinstated?
I'm prepared to.
And you'd be willing to pay that?
Yes.
Okay. Since your license was revoked, what have you done to keep up on industry developments and changes or rules with the pest control industry?
So even though I'm not licensed to apply pesticides, I can still attend the company safety meetings, or we have vendors come in, so I'm able to still attend these meetings and learn, but I haven't accredited any continuing education or anything like that, but I've been able to attend those meetings.
Okay. Have you taken any courses or anything that are specifically pest control related?
I mean, all of the vendor classes that we have are pest control related, but I haven't left. I don't have any certificates because I wasn't licensed to do so.
Okay. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, at this time, we'll take questions from the board, and we'll start on my left this time. Mr. Duran? Mr. Good?
Good morning, Mr. Craig.
Good morning.
Thank you for all your documentation. It's very helpful for us as board members.
Apologize.
Kind
I
of
didn't
see
have
what you're.
enough there.
I just kind of want to go back to the very beginning. When you're signing for your license under penalty and perjury, and you didn't check the box that you hadn't been convicted of a crime. As you sit here today, did you deliberately not check that box, knowing that would cause consequences?
I did not deliberately check it. In fact, the application for the applicator, I was not convicted yet. In fact, I had just started the court process for all that. For the field rep application, I had been convicted. Still pretty new to the industry, and my manager at that time filled out the application. I quickly signed it. In the original hearing, I did admit I know it's my responsibility to read what I'm signing, and I failed to do so. So I do take responsibility for that.
Okay. In your letter to us, you said you recognize the factors in toxic situations. Can you elaborate what you've done to mitigate that or to keep yourself on a straight and narrow path?
Yes, I found that I didn't have before. I could have people to talk to, whether it be my employer, my mother, or a family counselor. Someone that I can talk to, someone that can advise me in right directions. Before I was enclosed, and I tried to keep it all in and just try to handle things, and found that wasn't the best way to do things. So being able to talk to them, I'm able to get correct advice, make wiser decisions, and step back and look at the big picture before moving forward.
You said you're also involved with your church.
Yes, sir.
Did you get a statement from your pastor or anybody else regarding from the church regarding your activities there?
I did not.
Okay, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tile.
Good morning, Mr. Craig.
Good morning.
So you don't have documentation about your involvement with the church, but would you care to elaborate on what your involvement there is?
Yeah, excuse me. As a teenager, I was involved at a church in Yuba City, where I was very involved in the youth group. I was the youth group president. I ran the children's bus ministry. And at a point, they had a change in pastors where it was not pleasing to go there anymore. At that point, I also left the church. After this incident, I've been introducing myself back into the church. Not involved with the youth anymore. I'm not young, but being able to be a part of the church functions, going to the regular church, Sunday church, Wednesday church, and kind of that factors.
So your involvement then is really just resuming your attendance as just a member of the church.
Correct, in any
Okay.
fun-making activities, but not leading any functions.
Okay. And then also you referred to family counseling that you take advantage of. Do you do something on a regular basis or?
Well, originally, I went to the counselor I have a special needs child, and I went for him, and then found when speaking to her alone without him in the room, I was actually helping myself. So it's not regular counseling for myself, but I do speak to them regularly. If I'm having a situation that a family member can help me with, the employer, something very serious, but they've really been able to help me open my eyes to.
And did you mention that you're doing some coaching, or did
Yes,
I
sir.
hear that correctly?
Yes, sir. I coach 2 little league teams now. I have a 5 and a 6-year-old. So one's in T-ball and one's in farm, and I coach both those teams. We do 2 practices a week, and games haven't started till next month, but we'll be doing games as well. And I coached all of last year as well.
Is there any other community service things that you're doing that you'd like to share with us?
I wouldn't say anything as far as an organization, but I mean, I've helped the neighbors mow their lawns as senior citizens. I'm always trying to keep an eye open to help.
Speak a little bit slower, Mr.
I
Craig. Thank you.
apologize. We just had that recent campfire up in Paradise, so I've been trying to volunteer to help clean up the lots and any little things that I can do to help people in need, but nothing through a specific organization.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, no more questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duran.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
What was your age when you were working at McDonald's?
I started there when I was 16. I'd have to do the math to see when I left. Probably young, middle, or early 30s.
So when this incident happened, you were a teenager?
No, it happened 2015.
Okay. So you're already a young adult?
Correct.
Okay. And you say you have 5 children?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm very impressed with your mother's letter. She says that in multiple occasions you have gone to them for advice. Do you still have that avenue open to you? Do you still take advantage of it?
I do, and regretfully, they've always been there. I just never have used that avenue. But yes, they're very involved in helping me or always being there if I need them.
Okay. And you're willing to take on courses for the Structural Pest Control Board as required?
Of course.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions from the board? Seeing none, Mr. Fraley, do you have any additional questions?
I just wanted to elaborate on one question that Mr. Duran asked. You stated you have 5 children,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Craig. You're also a single father?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. No further questions.
Okay. Mr. Craig, any other statement you'd like to make to the board?
Nothing I can think of at this time.
Okay, Mr. Craig, you had a character witness you wanted to call this morning, correct?
Yes.
Let's call him now, sir, if you could please approach. Sir, if you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state under penalty of perjury that the evidence you will give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. And can you please state and spell your first and last name for the record?
My name is Cordell Stahl, S-T-A-H-L.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stahl. You were also present when I gave instructions to Mr. Craig prior to this morning's hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And you're here as a character witness. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just say what you would like the board to know about Mr. Craig, and then I will open it up for any questions if there are any.
My name's Cordell Stahl. I'm owner-operator of Hunter Services. We have a couple branches, one in Chico, one in Sacramento. I employ 37 employees. Christopher Craig is one of our key team members that works for us. When we talk with him, there are words that come up that describe Christopher: honesty, integrity, character, and his morals. He regularly meets with myself. He's a strong team member with us. We were a company that was eviscerated in the Camp Fire. We lost multiple vehicles, hundreds of clients. We had displaced employees. Christopher opened up his house, brought in 3 of our families of the 9 that were displaced. He helped out with the campfire. On the day of the fire, he went up to Paradise to try to help salvage equipment, save our facilities. He led a team of our guys up there. He stayed there until the last minute, until he was kicked out of the town. He's been instrumental in helping with the cleanup in Paradise. He does lot cleanups up there. That's his new job since the fire. Some of these people can afford to pay with us. Some of them can't, and he volunteers with them. The CMA church up there, he attends the men's group with us. And the men's group goes out, and we basically go out and we help people who can't afford to do things, and we help them on their properties to clean and make things a little bit better up there. During the campfire, when he opened up his house, he had about 15 people of families with kids that came to live with him. And it wasn't a day, it was weeks. After that, what Christopher did is works with our clients. He helped to facilitate housing for our other families. If you know the Chico area, there is no housing. He managed to get 6 of our families into housing down there by reaching out to our property managers and helping place them. He has been a fantastic person to have work with us. We trust him with our assets. He's responsible for the fleet that he works with, the equipment that he works with. He comes in and he does seek counseling from myself. We're a Christian company. We open up with prayer in the morning. He regularly participates with us. He works with the young guys there because the work they do it's hard work. It's not nice work. It's dirty. It's hard. He's stuck with us through this time. He's a father of 5. He has special needs, young man that is his son. He's a sole provider for his family. He wants to better himself, and he continually does that. He attends what we call our safety meetings, where what we do is we talk about our insecticides, our customer service, the pests that we handle. He goes through our respirator training programs. He goes through the regular process that our pest department attends. He doesn't do this as part of it. It's something that he volunteers to do on his own. He feels, that this is a part of his life, getting this license back, that he'd like to fill a void in again. He was a very important member with us when he came in and was a pest technician. He started with us as an applicator. He worked himself to become a field rep. He did this on his own accord to push himself to become the next level, to become good. He's a good, hardworking, honest man who made a mistake. He's learned from his mistake. He does seek guidance with his mother. I know this for sure. He takes time off from work to coach his Little League team. His day ends at 3:30. He goes straight to coaching. There's not a lot of guys out there that don't like him. He's just a good man.
Thank you. Mr. Fraley, do you have any questions?
Just a couple. Thank you again for coming today to testify. I just wanted to ask, would you trust Mr. Craig to handle money on behalf of your company
Absolutely.
and to enter your customers' homes?
Absolutely.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Van Steenwyck.
No question.
Mr. Good?
Just one, thank you for your presentation here and comments. So he's attending your annual worker safety classes?
Yes.
He's been in all those?
Yes, and he provides them for the division that he works in with us. He does lot cleanups in through the different counties down here in Sacramento, Martin Luther King Park area, and things like that. He does our lot cleanups, and he runs a crew that does that for us. And he performs his own safety meetings in that venture on his own also, and he attends our branch 2 and branch 3 services meeting.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Tamayo?
So, Mr. Stahl, it seemed when Mr. Craig was talking about his level of community service, it seemed that you gave us a number of examples. Did it seem to you when Mr. Craig was speaking that he was understating the amount of community service that he does?
Mr. Craig is a very shy individual, and this is probably the most I've ever heard him speak in public. It is very understated. In addition to what we do, he also does a lot of work, and he didn't mention this, but he also does work at a lot of work at the Jesus Center in Chico. He helped put in the landscape. He helped put in the landscape there. We do a lot of volunteer work with different entities in our industry. Such as we donate pest control, landscape services, other labor type services for churches, the SPCA, the Jesus Center out there, and Mr. Craig is instrumental in working with those. This is something that we volunteer as, and he's a part of that. I think he may have neglected that because he felt it was work oriented, although it's his personal being there also.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for being present with us today. Do you have an in-house continued education program for your employees?
Yes, sir.
Does Mr. Craig get any certification, certificates, or anything like that when he attends those classes?
The places like Target, Univar, BASF, those entities, unless he has a license, they don't really issue him a certificate. Mm-hmm. It would just be a non-credit training certificate. But he is in attendance with all these. The vendors are vendors at Univar, Target, and the other manufacturers. They all know him. He's very in tune with what we do. I introduce him along with my other managers to our vendors. They know who he is.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
No more questions.
Any other follow-up questions from the board? Mr. Fraley, do you have any additional questions?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Stahl, any final words you'd like to state?
I'd really be happy to have him back on service with us. I think he's a great asset to our industry. I know he made a mistake when he came to first apply with us. He told us in the interview what was happening. And at that time, we were willing to take a risk on him. When that venture came through and when he had the licensing issue that he has right now, we stood by him. He's a good man. And the work that I've seen him do with his family has been remarkable. And the way that he's come through when, as he was going through this venture that he's been through and afterwards, he's been very remorseful. He's very ashamed of everything that's taken place around this. And he has sought to get away from bad environments. He has sought to learn how to be a better man in his walk in life. It's nice to see the growth, and he's a good person.
Thank you. Anything further? Just one more time. Mr. Fraley?
I can do my conclusion.
Okay. Mr. Stahl, you are excused. You can return to the audience if you'd like. And Mr. Fraley, Mr. Craig, do you have any other witnesses or any other evidence you would like to introduce at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Fraley, any closing remarks?
Yes, Your Honor. Again, The burden of proof on petitions under Government Code Section 11522 is on the petitioner, not the board. And the standard of proof for petitions for reinstatement is clear and convincing evidence. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further, then that does conclude this petition hearing on this matter. The record is closed, the case is submitted, and we can go off the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, sir, you'll want to get, the court reporter will have a sheet for you to take before you leave today, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll take a 5-minute recess, and then we will be going into closed session. Okay, we have a review of the and approval of the minutes from October 23rd and 24th. Any comments? Mike back? Yeah, Mike.
And make a motion to pass the minute to accept the minutes.
Okay. You want to vote on it? Oh, yes, thank you. It's been a while. Any public comment? Okay, seeing none. Oh, Mike Duran for vote on it? Yes. Yes. Dave Tamayo?
Yes.
Curtis Good, yes. Dave, or Darren?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. They approve. Okay, from the Department of Consumer Affairs, we have Kim Kushmeyer. Thank you for attending.
Thank you for having me here. Good morning, board members and Executive Officer Saylor. It's my pleasure to be here today and speak to you. I wanted to give you just a little bit about my background. I was recently appointed as the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs. So I've been trying to go out and kind of speak to every one of the board meetings, just kind of giving a little bit of background about me and kind of what some of my goals are for the future. It was a real honor to be appointed by Governor Newsom to this position. DCA has actually been my home. For those of you that don't know, I've actually been with the Department of Consumer Affairs for about 30 years. I started as a student assistant with another board a long time ago. And I always joke at all the meetings and say I was 5 when I started. I wish that was true. But been with the department a long time, worked in different boards. I worked at a board for a long time until I actually moved over to the medical board of California. I worked there for a while until I got a governor's appointment under Governor Schwarzenegger for a short time as board and bureau relations. And then I actually moved back to the medical board. And then I was appointed shortly after that as that executive director. And I served in that capacity over that board for the last 6 years. So longstanding history with the department. It's kind of like my home, and it's nice to be in this position here. I actually sent out an email that went out to all department employees. It really kind of covered what my main areas of focus are going to be and what is important to me in this role. And I just kind of want to reiterate that to the board and kind of help you to understand what I'm going to be looking at and focusing on in the future. So one of the first things that's really important to me is client services and satisfaction. And I really think that every position that's within the Department of Consumer Affairs plays a critical role in providing efficient quality service to the boards and bureaus, so they in turn can provide the best experiences to the licensees and to the public. So client service, and again, our clients at the Department of Consumer Affairs are the boards and bureaus that we are under the Department of Consumer Affairs. So that's one thing that's really important to us. Working smarter together. I think we have a lot of talent within the department, and I think that if we work together, and it's been one of those items where I think in the past, and Susan can agree with me, it's kind of been like the department, and then you have the boards and bureaus, kind of an us and them. So I want to kind of turn that into more of a team approach on all of the items and really be working together to solve problems. And then the third thing really is data transparency and action. And it's really using that data and technology to better inform our decision making. So action plans are actually developed to really drive down timelines. And I know we've always asked boards and bureaus, like, what is your timeline to get a license or to, take a disciplinary action? But with that, I also want to look internally. How long is it taking us to process a regulation package? How long is it taking us at the department to do an investigation? How long is it taking to process a package for hiring and contracts? So looking at those as well and using data and technology to make decisions. So with those ideas actually in mind, the main areas that I'm going to be focusing on is reducing the time frame for processing regulations. I know as the medical board at the board, it was always a struggle with the timeline for regulations. So looking at that and seeing if there's any efficiencies we can find and streamlines we can areas we can streamline that process. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And then also obtaining fiscal reports for the department. I know it's really hard for you to maintain your budget when you don't know how much you're spending or how much revenue that you're bringing in on a monthly basis as we used to do. And so that's something else we're working on. Also decreasing the time frame to perform investigations at the Division of Investigation. Obviously, for the longer an individual is actually out there practicing under investigation, the longer they could have that potential to harm someone. So we want to speed up that investigative process time frame. Working on ADA compliance, as all of you know, we have to have our websites and all of the documents that we actually post ADA compliant. So the department's really been working on that. We have about 2 million documents, pages that we need to get ADA compliant. So that's something we've been working on. And then the last thing really is just ensuring that all of the legislation that gets passed gets implemented by the boards, bureaus, and department. And so looking at those areas. So that's my main focus as of right now. I am going to endeavor to really hold one-on-one meetings with all of the executive officers of all of the boards and meet with the bureau chiefs. But unfortunately, right now I have a large vacancy with my executive team. I think I finally just got one, so I still have 6 vacancies within the executive unit. So waiting for appointments for that. And as those individuals come on, then I'll be meeting with the executive officers. But as of right now, if anybody has any issues, they can feel free to reach out to me and I'll help them in any situation that they need until that time. Really, I want to sit down with them and just kind of see what their current issues are, anything with the department, and meet with them. So just a few updates I want to give you. I first wanted to let you know that on January 22nd, the Governor Newsom actually appointed a new secretary, so Secretary Castro Ramirez, and she's the new Secretary of Business, Consumer Services, and Housing Agency. And Secretary Castro Ramirez actually assumed this position on March 2nd, so she's real new to the position. And with the coronavirus and everything that's going on, she's just hopping right now, and so all of us are kind of really looking into that and active. But she previously actually served as the president of University Health Systems Foundation before she came into this position. And as all of you may remember, Secretary Podesta, she actually was the prior secretary. She's actually been appointed to the State Compensation Insurance Fund Board of Directors. And we were very fortunate to have her as our secretary. And we just want to really wish her well on her outgoing and just much success in the future. And just thank her for her leadership during that time. And then what I'm mostly happy about is that on March 5th, just earlier this week, last Friday, Governor Newsom appointed Jennifer Simoes as the department's Deputy Director of Legislation. So Ms. Simoes brings with her a strong background in legislation, having most recently served as the Chief of Legislation at the Medical Board since 2010. And so she's going to be a great contributor to the DCA Leg team. And so I'm really hoping that she can get out and really assist boards in anything that they need legislatively, and then also really representing us with the legislature and building those relationships with those offices. Regarding the regulation unit, I don't know if you're aware, but we do have a new regulation unit. And as of November, that unit actually became fully staffed. So now we have all of the individuals in that position, and we have one attorney that's overseeing all of them. So it's really going to be helping with streamlining the rulemaking process. A large priority, obviously, of that unit right now, though, is implementing AB 2138 regulations. I know you're going to be talking about those later today, the substantial relationship and criteria. And obviously, that's been a high priority because we have the July 1st deadline. We're trying to meet that. But we're also looking at other ways we can streamline. And one of those is actually moving to an electronic database to share information about regulations. So this is something that's called Sharewell, and it's actually going to allow boards and bureaus to upload their regulation package, so then it goes into an electronic format, and so it can be really reviewed in that format and then back and forth. And the best part of it is that the boards will be able to track their process and where all of the regulations are, so you'll be able to give updates at the board with that. One thing I'm really excited about, and Sean O'Connor is actually here in the audience. I know you're going to be hearing from him in a moment, but he really has done a yeoman's job on taking information out of the FisCal system, moving it into what we're using on the Breeze, on the actually QBERT side, and turning our reports that we can actually be looking at for our expenditures under FisCal. So it's going to be more similar to what we used to have under the CalSTARS report for a monthly, basically a look at what you're spending each month. And it will be ad hoc, so individuals will be able to go out. So if Susan wanted to go out and pull up the information just today, she'd be able to go out and run that report to see her expenditures as of the previous month. So we're really excited about that, and we're hoping that those are going to be available in the near future. Regarding website and ADA compliance, we're continuing our effort on that. Just wanted to let you know that we are hiring several students in order to assist us with that. And then we're also looking at doing a contract to help us get those old documents that we still need to have on the system, but bringing them ADA compliant. And then the last thing I would just like to talk a little bit about, and I think you've been a recipient of these services, and that's the department's Organizational Improvement Office. This unit provides DCA programs, change management services, business process mapping, and information technology system requirement documentation. And I know you're going to be hearing from Sean a little bit, and he'll probably talk a little bit about that. But this unit actually provides collaborative consulting on process reengineering and maximizes utilization of existing resources, improves productivity, and increases quality. And some of the current projects that they actually previous contract projects and then future projects they've worked on is they actually were mandated to do a review of some of the DCA services. So they've actually completed one on the Legal Affairs Division, which really was looking at that regulation process. They've finished one on the Division of Investigation. We're hoping that that will be released within the next month. But we're already looking at the improvements that they're recommending and implementing those already right now. And then also they've looked at the Office of Information Service Help Desk. And so that'll be another report that will be forthcoming in the future. And then the last one, and the one they've just begun, is looking at the Office of Human Resources and the whole hiring process and trying to find ways to streamline that and reduce that timeline and really find ways that sometimes, you know, you interview an individual, if they're not eligible, that causes a problem later on in the process. So looking at those kind of things up front. Then the other thing that they do is business analytics, and that's where they're currently working with 9 boards and bureaus to document and analyze their processes. And you may be aware that they've worked with you to process map your procedures specific to your board's business modernization efforts. So they'll continue to work with you as needed. And our hope is really that this unit is kind of a revolving unit where if you know, your executive officer needs any assistance and, okay, we've looked at this process, we're trying to find some efficiencies, calling in that team to really map out those processes. I know a lot of other boards have actually taken advantage of that and have come in and have been able to look at their licensing process or their enforcement process and find ways to cut out duplicate efforts maybe that may be happening. So with that, open to any questions that you may have. And again, just thank you for your opportunity to be here today, and really just thank you for the work of your executive officer. We've known each other for a long time, and so it's a joy to be working with Susan and just your staff do a great job.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming this afternoon. Any questions? Yes.
I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but we have two members that will be terming out at the end of this, end of June. Or beginning of June, I guess.
Very much. I've actually been sitting on interviews, so that's a good thing.
Pardon me?
I've actually been sitting on interviews for positions for this board, so
Okay,
definitely it's in the works.
So it's in the works, and you're aware of it, and there's the governor's office is aware.
Yes,
of it.
governor's office definitely.
That's kind of where I wanted to make sure that we'll be able to do business in July. And then the other is, and this isn't really directly related to this board, but it is related to DCA. And I've heard from various folks in the community concerns about the use of sworn officers for some of the investigations and whether that's really necessary and appropriate. Certainly sworn officers are where they're needed. It's important to have them where they're needed, but if they're really not needed, then the community is bearing a cost that maybe we don't need to bear if you don't need the gun-toting sworn peace officer doing those. So.
And that's definitely something that we are looking at. I don't know if you'll remember back, but when we did the Consumer Protection Enforcement Initiative a long time ago, that was something that we actually looked at and said, you know, there's a lot of things that are done at the Division of Investigation that could be done by a non-sworn, like a special investigator or other individuals. So that's definitely something that we're looking at. And as soon as that report comes out, I'll make sure that it gets sent out to everybody so you can actually look at that.
I just wanted to mention, Kim, that during the CPEI period of time, we were actually under the jurisdiction of DPR, so but they could probably use that documentation and some of that feedback from back then.
Perfect.
Yeah. 'Cause
Okay.
that was during the time that we were moved from 09 to 13.
That's right. Okay. All right. So if you can, I'll look at that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And then the other thing I just did want to mention is one of your positions that I know is vacant right now on the board is, I believe, a Senate position. And so we usually don't, you know, that's kind of outside of our bailiwick, but I do have a pretty good relationship with that office over there. So I'm going to be asking for, you know, to make sure that those appointments also hopefully will be filled as well.
Good. I've called a couple times, but I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Okay.
Any public comment or questions? Okay, seeing it. Thank you very much for attending. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for taking me quickly too.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, we have an update from Department of Pesticide Regulation. Peggy?
It's a little further down.
Good morning, everyone. Is the microphone positioned so that you can hear okay? Yes, thank you. Okay, very good. Because there are other specific agenda items, I am just going to give a couple of general DPR updates at this time. I am Peggy Byerly, Senior Environmental Specialist with the Enforcement Branch of Department of Pesticide Regulation. And thank you all for having us here today. The first item is a piece of good news for a colleague of mine that I've known for a number of years. I will ask him to stand in a moment, but I have to brag a little bit about his career first. Mr. Ken Everett has been promoted recently to the Department of Pesticide Regulation Assistant Director position over enforcement and several other programs. Mr. Everett, prior to this promotion, was in our registration branch for 5 years early on in his career, and for over a decade has been with DPR enforcement. He was in our Northern Regional Office for part of that time and has served with DPR in total over about 19 years. Mr. Everett, if you would please stand so I can embarrass you for the
Welcome,
last
Mr.
time.
Everett. Glad to have you.
Thank you. Okay, our next one is there is going to be certain segments of DPR staff that will be moving this spring. First off, the new location will be in Rancho Cordova at 3077 Fite, spelled F-I-T-E, Circle, which is off of Bradshaw on Highway 50. So it will be a little ways away from the Cal EPA headquarters that we've been in for a number of years. Our Northern Regional Office has been based out of West Sacramento in a small field office. They will likely be the first segment to move. The enforcement headquarters group, which includes me and some of my colleagues in the audience today, will be going next. At this moment in time, we are tentatively starting the segments to be moved in late April, still tentative. Other than the main line for our enforcement branch, individual staff phone numbers will all need to change. So as we get closer to a final move date for our northern group in enforcement as well as our headquarters group, I will be keeping Ms. Saylor and Kathy Boyle in the loop about those changes so that there's no significant delay in communications. Email will stay the same. It's just letterhead and things like that. Things will be going to Fite Circle, is my understanding. Mail can still be received at headquarters. It would just not, it might take a day or two to get delivered for anything time sensitive. So the third one is just an early heads up. We have not started much of the planning process yet, but as board members are aware, our structural regulatory training for new county agricultural commissioner inspection staff to learn about our structural program, structural code, structural board related functions and so forth. We are tentatively planning it to be in the Bay Area in the general Dublin location, and the date, or the week I should say, is between September 22nd and 24th. The reason it's a little bit earlier this year than it has been in the past is we have contracted through Alameda County Ag Department with Scenario Village. They have upgraded that location, and so it worked out for us to schedule it the week of September 21st. So DPR staff will be in contact as we get closer to the time to ask about any volunteer companies that could assist us with their time and equipment for the demo stations. We are anticipating that it will most likely be a basic county training similar to the one we've had for the last 2 or 3 years. And so unless you have any questions, those are general updates for the moment.
Dave?
So you said that training is for new staff in the Ag Commissioner's offices. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, because the Business and Professions Code has a mandate for the Structural Pest Control Board, agency, and Department of Pesticide Regulation to jointly develop and give training. So county inspectors should have this training before they are involved in enforcement actions.
And is there an ongoing requirement for Ag Commissioner training on structural pest control?
The code only speaks to that basic mandate. However, we, behind the scenes, our field offices as well as headquarters, develop and give training modules periodically. For example, our investigation procedures manual, when the most recent group was going statewide giving sessions to counties, they were including structural investigation scenarios in that, but there is no frequency of training mandated in any code, if that speaks to your question directly.
Sure, yeah, that's perfect. It's not required, but that's something that DPR does on an ongoing basis.
Yes,
and
we do.
and I think you had responded to a question that I had made at the PREC committee at DPR regarding awareness amongst the ag commissioners on the pyrethroid regulations. And will that be a part of the training that the new ag commissioner staff will be getting?
Yes, we informally in DPR in our regional offices call it the surface water regulations. And those code sections have since 2012, when they were enacted in the Title III California Code of Regulations, have been a part of the structural training module as well, both in PowerPoint slides and touched on at our demonstration stations where industry branch 2 volunteers assist in giving the training.
And you do that sort of like on an ongoing basis, sort of like they're regularly reminded of that through your training?
We have online modules that were presented that are available, yes, and they've been converted to ADA compliant per the state mandate last year. And also in the regional offices, they do informal meetings and training as needed because some counties are small and don't hire very often. So the state opportunities are the formal get together to help with network. They can interface with the board specialist staff that are an important part of our training, as well as DPR staff.
Yeah. And then finally, and I really appreciate the follow-up that you made when I did that question. I was wondering if it might be possible, and if the rest of the board here would like to hear that, if there could be some sort of a presentation at a future board meeting. My question was about what was DPR's knowledge of the extent to which the compliance with the surface water protection regs, what the status of your knowledge was, and you referred to, I forget, some data set that indicated that you shared that with me, and I was wondering if it might be possible and if there were, to do a presentation, assuming the rest of the board is, would be interested in that.
Absolutely. As long as we have sufficient notice, I would, of course, have to notify management. But since Mr. Everett's here today, part of that due diligence on my part is already done. But absolutely, I myself have given presentations. We also have from our environmental monitoring branch, if you wanted the science behind the current research studies that they do, those are posted periodically online as phases are completed. If you were more interested in the perspective of the inspection data that the counties do, how many times this item applied to a branch 2 use monitoring inspection by a county, how many violations were found, etc., then most likely it would be me or someone from the enforcement unit that would assist in giving that presentation to the board. If you wanted both, as long as we had enough time, we could talk to the environmental monitoring branch as well.
I personally would like both, because I know that there's been some DPR's done actually quite a bit of work to see how well those regulations are working from both a science and an enforcement background. I think that's something of interest, both, you know, to our the structural pest control industry. I think seems like it'd be a good venue. So, but I would appreciate that. So.
I know that there are at least 1 or 2 of our environmental monitoring staff involved with the studies who do go to the certain continuing education for licensees, both ag or structural. So I know that they have some material prepared that is geared towards licensees. But as I said, since that's another branch, I would have to go through management channels. So we would need enough, whether you wanted it on the next board agenda or the October one up here, we would need enough heads up to make sure we had the resources and staff to give it.
And I think we can just have you work with staff to figure out what the appropriate date is, and I don't hear any objection from the rest of the board. So
that'd be good.
What do you guys think? Okay, anyway, thank you very much. I really appreciate your efforts in this. So.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Yeah. Any public questions or comments? Thank you, Peggy. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. Okay, item 10. We have a presentation discussion on school pesticide use. Is Eric Denmark? Eric, welcome. And I think you're a guest of Dave's. Is that right?
Well, I invited him. I think he's a guest of all of us.
So.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as your guest. I did want to thank Dave personally for inviting me here today. Structural Pest Control Board is an organization that I've been interested in interfacing with for 5 years now, since I joined the Department of Pesticide Regulation. What do I do for DPR? I'm the supervisor for the School and Child Care Integrated Pest Management Program. What did I do before I got to DPR? Well, I got a degree in entomology. Then I went to Texas A&M for a second one. I wish I could say I worked with Dr. Roger Gold, but I actually worked in the building right next to his. When I got my master's, I moved up to Seattle and I started my career in the structural pest control industry, doing commercial pest management. I was promoted to operations manager at a different branch in Eugene, Oregon, where I did a lot of sensitive accounts, organic food processing, hospitals, schools, et cetera, et cetera. After that, I ended up at the Penn State Pesticide Safety Education Program, and from there I came to DPR. One of the most exciting things for me about my job is getting to work with the school pesticide use report database every day. When I was interviewing and I was on the phone, I said, "So you're telling me you can see all the pesticide applications made in schools?" And they said, "Yes." And I said, "Can you see who made those applications?" And they said, "Oh, we'd have to go to IT for that." And I thought, okay, I'm going to have to learn how to do that, which I did. Now, looking at the school pesticide use report database, I could see the same patterns that I practiced as a structural applicator. I could see that the business practices that I was trained on were industry standard, and that these patterns were repeated across companies, across school districts, counties, and in fact, statewide. So if you were to ask me today, what does the average pest management program at a school in California look like, I could tell you. And if you were to ask me, are there school districts that have a above average use rate, to use just a general term, I would say yes, there are. And are there some that have below average? Absolutely. What I am really looking for when I examine the data is continuous, repeated use of the same active ingredients over often many years. And my thinking on that is that if you don't have a pest problem, then you don't need to be using this. So I'm going to assume that you have a pest problem. So if you have a pest problem and you're using the same active ingredient over and over again repeatedly, and it's not resolving the problem over a long period of time, that tells me that you're a good candidate for outreach. And the biggest AIs that I started with were strychnine and aluminum phosphide. And why is that? It's because those are the most acutely toxic products that are regularly applied to school sites in California. Now, we haven't had an issue with aluminum phosphide exposure at a school site in California, as far as I'm aware. Over the past, it's getting to be almost a decade now, we've had a handful across the country, and, they are unfortunate events when they occur. So that's one to watch out for. Why are we using this stuff? Most people here probably know it's gophers. And the gophers are a big problem, and they do a lot of damage. And when you think about gophers in your backyard, it's one thing. When you think about gophers on 600 acres at 30 school sites, it's another. And that's not even a big district in this state. So we're talking about, big, serious pest problems. And we're talking about applications of products that these applications are not always effective. And that's why we're seeing the repeated use. Managing a pest that you can't see underground when your product is reliant on interacting with moisture is difficult. Inherently, it's a technical thing. And I think there are some applicators who are really good at it. And there are some applicators who don't have as much experience or training who are not getting the same effectiveness from the same product. I think that is a lot of what drives what turns into these repeated applications. Of course, after the last major event, not in this state with aluminum phosphide, the label was changed and there was a buffer zone increase. And of course, there was an exemption in place for school fields, but when the label changed, we saw the industry shift rather dramatically away from aluminum phosphide, which is still used with a good amount of frequency, to strychnine. And early on in that process, we had some other associated problems with secondary poisoning with strychnine. I haven't heard as much about that as was said back in, say, 2012. So I think that problem leveled off. But we still have a gopher issue. It's all throughout the state, from San Diego to Wairika, and we see a lot of pesticide applications aimed at that particular pest. And it's interesting to me to note that a lot of times in the data, I see patterns that suggest to me that a structural pest control company is working with a school and doing a fine job on all the things that they often work with, which is perimeter insects and occasional invaders, spiders, ants, cockroaches, mice, rats, etc. And then they might get pulled in to the gopher problem when the athletics department starts to complain, when there's a slip, trip, or fall due to these gopher holes, when parents start to complain because the field looks really bad, right? And that's difficult. That actually happened to me at one of my organic food processing facilities. They said, "You do so great with these bugs. Can you kill these moles too?" And of course, we agreed to try to do that. And we got some traps of these spear varieties, and we went out there with shovels and hit rock immediately. Absolute soil was just packed with rocks, couldn't set the traps, couldn't get anything going. And so, even as someone, let me get my, hoity-toity voice on with a master's degree, right? And 2 degrees in entomology, when you show me a novel problem that's difficult, right, it's going to take some training and some experience to get there. So that's where I see maybe the biggest risk, not the injuries. The injuries from pesticide products in schools are generally splashing sanitizers and disinfectants, getting in people's eyes and stuff. But the biggest risk, I think, of a exposure, could be the aluminum phosphide and the strychnine. There's an old story that I like to share when people talk about this, which is there's a school district down in LA who had a gopher pop up, and a kid got his hands on it. And I'm thinking maybe this was a gopher that wasn't feeling so well. We heard that out of Manteca, was they would have, gophers that didn't get a total lethal dose and would show up on the surface all upset and disoriented. So in any case, down in the LA area back in the 90s, we had this gopher pop up, and this kid got a hold of it, and these 3 custodians ended up with it in a bucket in their supply closet, and they thought they might spray it with gum freeze, who knows why, and then one of them lit a cigarette, and it caused an explosion and injured the 3 of them plus 16 other students. You can look this up on the LA Times. It's not a news story, but it is an interesting example of how pest problems can really go awry and how it's important that we manage these things correctly so that we don't end up with gopher explosions. On a lighter note, my favorite part of the article is that it ends with the gopher survived and was later released. So why am I here today and talking your ear off and telling you all these stories and, saying who I am and what I do? Well, I've looked at Structural Pest Control Board. You guys have sent out some emails to your listserv for us. I've tried to figure out what you do and how we could interface. I can't say that I'm totally sure yet exactly what I could offer you and what you could offer me, but I will say this. Looking at the data the way I do, having been in the industry, and I take a slightly different take on it than DPR has in the past in terms of this number of applications or frequency of use. We can see what's going on. We can see which products are popular. We can see which actives are used in a wide array of products versus a small array of products. I've even looked at county-wide structural data, frequency of use versus school pesticide use. And what I see is that generally what's in the back of the truck or the service vehicle is not changing, but there is less diversity of products, less diversity of active ingredients being used at schools. And so I think the industry has done a good job of trying to use, less hard-hitting materials, trying to use non-residual materials, right? Everything that we're doing in schools is to reduce risk to kids, and I see that effort. I'll tell you one way I really see it strongly is when aluminum phosphide is applied, it is overwhelmingly applied on Saturdays, on days when students are not around. There's nothing on the label that says it has to be applied on Saturdays. There's nothing in the Healthy Schools Act that says it has to be applied on Saturdays. Now, aluminum phosphide label is pretty strict, and you got to put up the skull and crossbones signs, and you got to keep people out of the area, right? But we do see schools that are using this stuff during the week, right, on Tuesdays and whatnot. Not saying they're doing anything wrong. I just see that the industry overall has reduced their own risk shifting to these Saturday applications, and I think it would be nice in the future to kind of continue to see that trend happen, especially with that one particular active ingredient. Honestly, coming here today, I have my PowerPoint. Dave asked me to give the same presentation I gave at PREC, and I often lean on great visualizations and good visuals as a crutch, but when I walked into the room, I saw that's not what was about to happen today, so I've been ad-libbing a bit, and I think I'm about out of fresh material to present, so I'll just go straight to questions.
One question regarding the aluminum phosphide and strychnine that's being used, and probably the lack of success. You bring up the watering and activating the ingredients. Have you reached out to the school districts and making sure that they're following labels and things are getting watered, and so that chemical or product is being used properly?
Yeah, most of the applications of aluminum phosphide are done by businesses because most school districts are not doing restricted use pesticides. When I first started presenting on this topic in California at Weed Science Society, an applicator came up to me after my talk and said, "Hey, this is an easy one. You know, you just dump water down the hole after it." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that. Great, thanks for sharing." And I went back to the office and I checked the label, and currently it says, "Do not add water," right? You get this explosive reaction and whatnot. So I've heard people say that, you know, we always irrigate after we do an aluminum phosphide application. Well, what they've said actually is the schools always irrigate. This was an outsider saying that. And I'm just not sure that's true. It's hard enough for us to get the irrigation turned on when we're running a workshop, let alone have a third-party company getting their irrigation set up with the school district. So we see these applications year-round. And I think there are certain times of year in certain parts of the state where you could point out and say, probably the soil moisture is just too low for this to work.
Yeah.
But irrigation does change that.
Yeah, I would agree. If you have something that you can maybe share with us, and we have representatives here from PCLC, our state organization, we could probably share that with the industry and maybe assist with you in your endeavors in that area.
That'd be great.
Yeah, if you really see that's being a big issue, and because generally the product works excellent if it's used properly.
If it's used properly, absolutely. And I see treatments at certain districts where they do a big knockdown and it works really well for them, and then they're able to maintain their program using either baits or traps or a combination, or maybe have to come back and do another knockdown in 6 months. It's the twice a month, 3 times a month. That's when I start to get nervous, not in the district, but at the same school site. And then yeah, you know, the Healthy Schools Act says the state shall take the necessary steps to reduce children's exposure to toxic pesticides. And when I look at that word toxic, my mind goes LD50. And the lowest LD50 active ingredient used on schools is aluminum phosphide.
Yeah, I would totally agree. Well, we'd be happy to assist with that. I'm sure PCLC can get that word out for you very quickly.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? Staff?
Yeah, I do. So actually, I'm a little disappointed that you didn't want to do the PowerPoint, but I appreciate the insights that you had.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that I was really struck when you gave that presentation to the PREC, does everybody refer to it as PREC? Am I just?
I call it PREC. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if that, I might have to change. So anyway, what struck me was that the way that you analyze the statewide data sort of teases out what the real trends are in who's using what. So there's overall trends of what's really being used at the schools. There's a hypothesis that's pretty well reflective of more general pesticide applications, although I know that might be difficult to demonstrate. And then also that you're able to tease out who's using things on a regular basis in that whole outreach part of it. And I thought that the visuals that you provided really sort of drove that home and helped you identify and then reach out to the particular schools that maybe could use a little bit of additional information on.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up.
So, anyway, I know now it's probably a little late to have you go through that whole presentation, but I just wanted to point out that
there is a projector. I see.
Yeah, there is. So
I
I don't know, and time wise, I'm not sure. I'd defer to our chair as to whether you want to see that or not, but it's.
Yeah,
I think
it's absolutely not that I didn't want to give the presentation. I apologize. I saw the lay of the room and I didn't see the projector on the ceiling, so I figured I wouldn't. I did bring the presentation, and I would love to share those visuals, but I do want to be respectful of people's times. What I will say is, I'm glad you brought up how we analyze the data. It is a bit different than what's been done before, and it gets around some problems, some data management problems that prevent people from seeing the patterns, but you're right. It has allowed us to look specifically for problems with integrated pest management practices as opposed to active ingredients, and it has allowed us to come up with the most fair way that I've found so far to compare two different organizations. Comparing School District A to School District B is really difficult when you start to get into the weeds of how many buildings, what's the staff look like, what's their funding like. But this method, as you mentioned, is fairly defendable.
Very good. Any comments or questions from the public? Well, Mr. Denmark, we would love to have you back. How long is your presentation, just so I know? Maybe we can put you on calendar for next time, or if it's more convenient for you up here.
I'm happy to speak for as little as 15 minutes or as much as 2 hours. That's not my favorite.
Okay. Why don't we schedule for our next meeting,
Okay.
and we'd make sure we do a PowerPoint presentation, and we'd love to hear from you. And maybe we can get together and work with PCOC and assist you in some of your endeavors there, particularly regarding the aluminum phosphide.
I'd really appreciate any help. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
For October, when we're back in Sacramento, because July, we're going to be down south.
Sacramento is preferable, yes.
Okay. Great. Any other questions?
I just wanted to point out that I was particularly there. Just the way you analyzed it, I thought was particularly clever as far as that repeated application, and then also that you used the aspect of let's look at the number of applications and not the amount of active ingredient, and in a way of getting away from some of those really gross errors that can occur that really skew it if somebody reports amount of product versus active ingredient. I thought that's a really helpful way of doing that. Of course, we can really only do that with things where they have reporting granularity that the schools have, and it doesn't really apply to the type of reporting that we routinely get from structural industry. So
Right. I appreciate you elucidating that further, and that cleverness, which I appreciate that term, comes from my experience in the industry and having actually worked with these products and understand what it's like to be out there. And furthermore, this method can be applied to what I call the big PUR, the statewide PUR, where you see structural data being submitted, in spite of removing the requirement that number of applications be reported on the form. You can simply look at frequency of use for the number of times those products pop up on monthly summaries and the number of companies who are reporting that product on monthly summaries, and that becomes your frequency of use.
Yeah.
thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, item 11, we're going to have a discussion, the Structural Pest Control Board compliance with EPA. Leslie?
Hello, my name is Leslie Talpasani, and I'm with the Department of Pesticide Regulations Licensing and Certification Program, and I am the project lead on implementing the new federal certification and training rule, which relates to all licensed certified applicators throughout the nation. So I know I've given you guys a few updates before about some things that California needs to do to kind of get in compliance with this rule. The most significant to the Structural Pest Control Board is just a few adjustments with the continuing education to meet the federal requirement to verify identity and successful completion of the course. So we've kind of completed, or we haven't kind of, we have completed the first step of the process, which means turning in our state plan. It's a draft state plan that we submit to the EPA. Our deadline for submitting it was March 4th. And it has been submitted and preliminarily looked at and noted that we have met all the requirements for submission. So the next process that the EPA has is they're going to begin reviewing the details of our state plan and how we intend to implement the federal requirements. And it's going to begin sort of the iterative process with the EPA as far as how we intend to meet their requirements federally. Each state has a very different program, so it kind of requires a lot of dialogue back and forth. So we're now in that process. I'm hoping to get some preliminary feedback from them around summertime based on our requirements and how they feel that we're meeting it, or if they have any questions or anything like that. So hopefully we can start beginning doing some outreach thereafter once we kind of know where the EPA stands with our plan. So that's kind of where we stand right now, is just sort of waiting for the EPA to start their process of looking at our plan and getting an idea of how everything fits into the federal rule. And that's my update for you guys. Any
Good.
questions?
Any public questions or comments? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Appreciate the
Welcome.
update. Okay, item 12, business modernization and plan update from the Office Information Services. Lisa? Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning or good afternoon,
And-
everyone.
yep.
As the chair mentioned, my name is Lisa Rangel. I am the project director for the Business Modernization Cohort 2, and this is Sean O'Connor, project director for Cohort 1. Oh, is that better? All right, there we go. Yeah, no problem. Before I want to start off with a little brief overview of the business modernization effort. Structural Pest Control Board is one of 17 boards and bureaus currently going through the business modernization effort. Each program, as Director Kirchmeier mentioned, goes through an extensive business process mapping and requirements gathering with our Organizational Improvement Office. Then, with assistance from the Office of Information Services, proceeds through the California Department of Technology's PAL process, which we call Project Approval Lifecycle. It consists of 4 stages. I would like to emphasize that the Business Modernization Initiative is truly a business-driven initiative. And while OIO and OIS play a role in the business modernization effort, it is truly board staff who have worked. The level of work has been amazing and outstanding thus far. It is truly the critical success of the overall project once we get into the actual project. Some recent accomplishments that the board has done to date. They were the first in their cohort to complete the business process mapping and functional requirements gathering. They have completed stage 1 of the California Department of Technology PAL process, and which means they're currently in stage 2. And during stage 2, there was a requirement that we complete market research. We had about 10 vendors come out and participate and provide a system demonstration, which really helped understand not only OIS's knowledge of the technology capable, but really the board as well. And we also completed, we had cost estimates provided from those system vendors who came out and provided the demonstration. And with assistance with the DCA Budget Office, confirmed that the Structural Pest Board's fund condition can support the overall project. Well, the technology, so just to give you guys some examples, some technology we saw out there is real-time communication with applicants and licensees, text message functionality, mobile or tablet functionality for on-site inspections as well. So those are really eye-opening to understand what's out there available, technology available. We also have confirmation from the board that they would like to go ahead and participate in the cohort, and upon approval, final approval from Department of Technology, the stage 2, they'll officially be formed as Business Modernization Cohort 2. What that, along with 3 other boards and bureaus that will be in the cohort, so 4 boards, which really helps with some of the cost savings for CDT oversight and whatnot. So that's very helpful to go with other programs as opposed to going in inter-project alone.
Right, to save costs and
Yeah.
show the cost of the other programs.
Right.
So we're in with 3 others, correct?
Correct. Yep. So some of the solution paths moving forward, we will mirror the functionality and the agile, what they call agile methodology of the successful cannabis project, along with any takeaways and lessons learned that I work very closely with Sean, that we could apply to cohort 2 from cohort 1. And we'll work with board leadership to identify what we call a minimum viable product. So we'll be able to we will be able to deploy functionality earlier in the project as opposed to wait till the final projects, which is approximately 18 months. We'll work with Susan and Elizabeth to identify what features or typically online functionality that we will be able to deploy roughly about 6 to 8 months into the project. And it's really like taking a piece of the apple at a time to be able to deploy and not have to wait to the end of the project. And what that also helps organizationally, it helps focus on an area of the board instead of a rip and replace model where staff leave the office and the next day come into a brand new system. They're able to adjust and working with Organizational Improvement Office to understand the system functionality and again focus one area at a time before full implementation of the system. Let's see. We're also we have used resources to develop what we call iServices. So that allows us the ability to essentially connect from the old legacy systems to the new once we're able to deploy functionality incrementally. Some upcoming activities for business modernization is with approval of stage 2, we will officially be in stage 3 where we develop project plans, solicitation packages for a vendor and a solution ultimately, which the vendor will assist DCA and the board in the full-on project once we're able to begin. And along with stage 3 approval, then that means we'll enter into the 4th and final stage of the PAL process where we'll actually begin the solicitation activities. And I know those upcoming activities, I probably broke it down in it's way simpler than what it really is. We have a lot of work still to come for the project. I mentioned those in maybe a minute, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And with that, the level of commitment received from the board thus far has been outstanding, as mentioned earlier. So I'd like to thank Susan and board staff and their efforts thus far. I look forward to continuous momentum moving forward. So thank you. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Go ahead. So I just have a couple of quick questions. Just to confirm, this is you said roughly full implementation within 18 months. Is that what you said?
We're targeting 18 months for project completion.
Okay. And so on top of everything else that you mentioned, this also includes online payments, online submission of all forms, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay.
Does that include license renewal?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, business processing mapping included what we discussed. I was commenting there, business processing include what Curtis, what you and I have talked about over the years, that for renewals in the new system, the individuals will have to identify which courses they took and when they took them. That was part of our process mapping for the new system. And we should be able to roll out, I thought we'd be able to roll out the first piece, like by April next year.
It would be roughly probably early, more along the lines of close to early summer, most likely at this point, depending on when we can actually begin the project, which we're thinking right about now, early fall, if we begin the project. So that puts us right around the 6 to 8 month mark where it's early summer, most likely.
And that's this is Sean O'Connor from Business Modernization Cohort 1. That's roughly the time period that we're seeing for Cohort 1 as well. It's possible that depending upon the system integrator or the software solution selected as we finish out the planning process, that time frame could be brought in, but I would think it would not push out any longer than that from the start of the project.
Okay, and I was just asking because our renewal cycle period is June 30th. So we were hoping to maybe have that piece by April 21 so that those renewing in June could use the new functionality in the new system.
Well, I think that considering that, I think we would probably put some planning around that, and that might be potentially a contractual item to consider, Lisa, including in the contract. There's not anything at this point from a planning process, if that's a key date for you, that would prevent us from building that in. And it's possible that pieces of your functionality, Susan, could go out before the other 3 programs, particularly if it's a renewal, which are typically when compared to the other larger scopes of functionality, pretty simple.
Yes.
So
And compared to licensing examination applications and all that.
Exactly.
Right.
And the nice thing about renewals is, as you all know, renewals are a high volume application that you get when compared to the others. However, it's also one of the easier ones to process. So they're a nice way for a quick win for the programs to get. So that's certainly something we'll take back and incorporate into our planning if that would increase the value for you.
Yes, they absolutely would. Thank you very much.
Will the system have the capability? I know we don't routinely require people to provide documentation of the training that they're asserting that they did, but there's a certain percentage that get audited on that. Will the system allow for uploading of that documentation?
Yes, absolutely. The during the market research timeframe where we had vendors come out and show us, I think almost every single one of them had the capability to attach, make it a required attachment if necessary, in the renewal process or application process. So yes.
Great, thank you.
Mike, yes, did you have a follow-up?
I actually just wanted to add one thing that's a little bit late breaking news from Business Modernization Cohort 1, which is in the project implementation mode. So we're actually working in that 6 to 8 month period that we talked about earlier as far as that with 4 other programs right now. And one of the pieces of feedback that has come back to us from the system integration partner that we have, as well as our independent project oversight that is assigned to us from the California Department of Technology. And independent project oversight is just as exciting as it sounds. They're the people who are on your project and tell you all the things you're doing wrong and need to fix. But I wanted to mention that Lisa told us earlier about the quality of work that the process map, the high quality of work that your staff put into the process mapping. And that's one of the areas early on that we've been complimented on by both of those parties, the independent project oversight and the system integrator, that the level of depth and understanding that we have documented in those process maps is making things go much smoother when we get through to implementation. So that was very validating for us, and I think it's a good it's good to know that retained the high value that we thought in making that investment of staff time to make those as good as they possibly could be.
Any public comments or questions? Great. Thank you both. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you both for coming.
Susan, you ready for your executive report? Do you think we need another break? We just got out of 20. We'll see how it goes here. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so in your board packages are your licensing examination and WDO statistics and survey results. Those are all in your board packages. If you have comments or questions regarding those items, I'll answer those and then go on to some of the other things that's on the EO update.
Applicators passing rate, pretty good.
It's pretty darn high.
Yeah.
It is
Consistent.
Yes, it has been consistent as of late.
Yeah.
Okay. Other things in regards to examination development, I wanted to mention the Branch 1 OPR and FR exam construction workshop. While we had to extend it to January, it was very successful. We had a lot of excellent participation from OPRs and FRs. As I indicate, that was an exam construction workshop. We are scheduled to have new Branch 1 exams for OPRs and FRs somewhere around June, July. That exam hasn't been rewritten in over a decade, so I'm very, very excited to see that happening. Also, thanks to that group that attended, they reduced the number of reference materials from 10 to 6, eliminating malice and also eliminating the Florida Fume manual that was from 2005. So that was a big plus as well. I also wanted to thank Curtis and Newport Exterminating for hosting that in Irvine. I think that was very beneficial in getting participation in the Southern California, of course. In regards to other workshops, we're still having a lot of difficulty getting participation.
Applicators, huh?
Actually, it's not just the applicators. The field rep branch 3, which of course is one of our large licensing populations, we've had to cancel the field rep branch 3 workshop 3 times now. We could only get 3 people to initially say they would attend. We usually try and get at least 8. So if we have a couple that back out, we can still go forward with that workshop. So we have had to cancel and postpone that FR branch 2 workshop 3 times now. Applicators, yes, I need more help. We've been working on, Darren, you can probably tell me, we've been working on the applicator new OA occupational analysis for about 2 years.
Sounds about right.
Okay, so we're about 2 years. We're getting down to the final, but like right now, I need commitments from 8 applicators to spend 1 hour on a phone interview. And right now, I only have 2. So I really need some help there. Like I said, that's just, they're not compensated, but it's 1 hour of their time. We'll, Office of Professional Examination Services will plan those phone interviews whenever it's convenient for the applicator, but we got to have that participation so that we can move forward with finishing the new occupational analysis for applicators. Let's see.
Can you commit some guys? I'll commit at least 2 for you. I will have that done for you. At least 2,
Okay, good.
if not 3.
Well, I have 1 commitment from Neighborly Pest. So thank you, Neighborly Pest. I have 1 commitment there, and I have 1 commitment from Lease Company Quality. So if you can do 2 from your company, then we've got 4 right now, and then we'll work on getting the other 4. Okay. Thank you very much. The next thing on the agenda is an update regarding trying to get an author for sections 8572, 8593, 8593.1, and 8610. I'm still in the works of working with Chris and lobbyists to get that in a bill. We hope that will be successful. 2 of those sections are very important, 8593 and 8593.1, because if you remember, we are eliminating the option for a challenge exam. Eliminating the option for a challenge exam no longer fits in the state plan. So now is a good time to fix that problem. 8572 is the section that we've been trying to get in where that is our authority to issue in-house probationary licenses. Right now, we're limited to 3 years. And what has been previously approved by the board members is to increase that to 5. We're seeing a lot of decisions coming back from administrative law judges in cases where 5 is more appropriate. So we're trying to get that in as well. So that's the 4 sections, just as a reminder. Let's see. A couple other items, and I'm done unless you have questions. Our ACT book is quite old. It's 2015. We had hoped to have one out and published in 2020. I may delay that till the spring of 2021 to incorporate some legislation from this year. That would seem to make more sense to me. I mean, we probably can get one out by 2020, but then we would have those updates, of course, that are not included in the book. So I'll give you another progress report in July when we meet again on where that's going. This is just a reminder for everyone. It was kind of brought up earlier. It's renewal season, or just about. Renewals are sent out to all licensees renewing in 2020. Those are sent out about the 3rd Sunday of April. Just a reminder to industry, you've got to have your hours by June 30th, 2020. The renewal slip gives you a detailed breakdown of exactly what hours you need, each category, etc. but that's just a reminder to make sure you have those hours and get those renewals submitted in. Then I wanted to give you an update on the 2019 CE audit that we've already started. The 2019 CE audit, we actually sent out initial letters in mid-February this year. We audited 30% of OPRs, and as of yesterday, 81% of those OPRs had already submitted their certificates for review. So we're really, really impressed with the outcome. We changed the process a little bit this year, and not only can you send them by snail mail to us, but we're giving licensees the option to email them to us. So we think for sure that's the reason why we got such a high compliance already. Now, of course, those certificates have not been checked and reviewed to ensure that they're accurate and that they did actually complete the courses, but that's the process we'll do behind the scenes. As of yesterday, field reps had submitted, 31% of the field reps audited had submitted their certificates, and 59% of the applicators had returned their certificates to us. So we were really pleased with those results so far in less than a month. That's all I have, unless you have questions, comments.
Dave?
Yeah, it's good to hear that the option for emailing was actually helpful as far as getting earlier compliance with that. There's a comment in here that I think is very uncharacteristically negative about response. I'm talking about the survey results, and there was a comment about not returning phone calls and things like that. And I just want to point out, I recognize that we very rarely get negative comments, and that it's overall positive. I'm wondering, do we have the capability of management maybe following up on whether there was, what the particular issue is, or are these comments anonymous?
They're anonymous.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't really have a way of figuring that out. So.
No, we don't. Like I said, it is very odd. It's been very unusual that we have a negative comment, because most of the comments are always very positive. But I did notice that myself as well.
All right. Thank you.
Any public comment, questions? Everybody's quiet today. Got to come up with one before we leave. Okay. The review of the Structural Pest Control Board strategic plan discussion. Did you want to share anything on that today, or move that till?
Well, I was only going to share that the plan is in your board packages. We went through and identified basically where we are with each of the goals, so that gives you an update. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is we do need to have a new strategic plan in place. That process, I have started working with Solid, that's the training unit in DCA. So I started working with them several months ago. I actually had them pencil in for us to be on calendar this October. Like the first day of the board meeting would be board members in a Solid class working on strategic plan for the entire day. Then I decided that timing, and Solid is in Sacramento, so I was trying to go with the Sacramento meetings. I thought October this year probably is not a good time, because we can potentially have 4 new board members by October. So I now have I asked them to pencil us in for sometime in March, when I can give them a day when we're back in Sacramento. So I just wanted to provide you with that update as well. One item that I do want to mention that's in the strategic plan was doing additional outreach. We have started working on that. Robert Lucas, my assistant, he's in the audience as well. We did partner with Contractor State License Board, and Robert has started attending senior scammer stopper events in conjunction with Contractor State License Board. We also reached out to the department to look into doing some outreach at home and garden shows. That's a little complicated because usually home and garden shows are on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. So that's usually overtime. We would also have to be in contract to pay for a booth. The booths are pretty expensive at those shows, especially in some areas. So we're not sure if that's going to be a viable option for us for outreach, but we at least plan to continue working in conjunction with CSLB on other items for outreach.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions? Any public comments? Okay, thank you. Okay, we have an update on the status and research of proposals for funding. Who was giving that? Or was that just everybody got one in your packet? Everybody get a chance to review those?
Yes, there is a progress report in your board packages from all 5 of the researchers contracts that we have in place. According to the contracts, you have the option of requesting that the researcher come and present in person. So if you would like to do that sometime in the future, just keep that as an option that you can pass on to staff, and then we'll reach out to the researcher.
I found several of these very thorough and very informative.
Mm-hmm.
Any comments? No? Public?
Well, I would like to say, as they're completed, I think it would be great to
Yeah, definitely.
have presentations on what the results were. So
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks.
What's that? Any public comment? We all good? Oh, everybody's good. Okay, where are we?
Regulations.
16. Regulation discussion and possible action and update here.
So, did you want me to
You want to take that?
go over? I can go
Please.
over a couple of them.
Okay.
Easily. Item A. So that's the pesticide disclosure. It's on. It's on. Is it working? It's on. Okay. Pesticide disclosure requirements. So I'm at this time, this has gone through a lot of work, and I think we're getting good feedback from this industry stakeholders. However, I'm going to suggest that it go to a committee, a working committee. And I think Darren already volunteered to head that up. But as president, you can go ahead and name another industry member or board. You don't have to do it right now. You can think about it. You can figure out who might be interested to participate in that, to do some more continued work with this and bring it back in July with a good final, hopefully close to final form.
Okay, well. Todd, did I hear that you may be interested in serving on that committee? That'd be great. Is there anybody else from the public here that would like to serve on that committee? Be part of that? Okay. Chris, you would? Or you can help us find? Okay. Darren, how many people would you like on your committee?
Does 140 count? I'm totally kidding.
You can't get that. Not with coronavirus.
I'm thinking roughly it would be potentially 5 to 7 based on 5 to 7 based on who would have the time and availability for it. If we are looking at presenting this in July, then it'll probably be in the smaller side, just to be able to get everybody together. We will.
Other commitments means we're only talking a 4-month window to have something done and bring it back.
Yeah, and then we'll be. I will definitely involve County Ag, probably Michelle, because she has expressed interest in this topic as well.
Very good.
And we'll pick this up probably. Yeah, and I'll work with Chris on it. We'll pick this up probably within a week or so to start the conversation to make sure that we can have something for you by July.
Excellent. Do you have anything else to follow up on, Sabina? Okay. Yes, please. Yes, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diana Acosta. I'm Deputy Ag Commissioner with Sacramento County Ag Commissioner's Office. And I'm here on behalf of Sacramento County, but also for the counties that weren't able to be here today. So I was prepared to share the additional comments that have come in since industry and the commissioners were provided with the packet of updated changes. So do you want me to present that today or provide it later to the committee?
Right.
or-
Maybe you could send it to Susan directly, and she could give everything to the committee, and then they can work through it there and that contact information too for the committee.
Yes. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
And then, did you want any other additional volunteers from DPO?
I'll reach out to them.
Okay. Okay. You could put the word out, we're forming
Yeah.
a committee, and welcome to have you serve on that committee. I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm not using my mic, but we'd love to have additional members on the committee.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, have you been in contact with Michelle she's with Santa Clara, right?
Yes, I talked to her last night, and so part of her comments were included with what I was going to be stating today. But
So one of the things that and this came up with some other comments that we received from the County of Santa Clara was that they have some travel restrictions, and I'm wondering if you're aware of would Michelle, maybe you're aware, or it seems like something we should check into of whether she's actually available to come. And I realize we can always do things over the phone, but
If we will deal with that as far as the
Sure.
actual committee selection. Who specifically from the county ag community will be participating?
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Do you have anything additional to follow up on there?
Not on those sections.
So you covered everything under possible?
Did you no?
Oh, no.
You want to do the WDO?
Yeah, I
And
was.
I'll do is 2138.
Okay. I was going to just mention CCR section 1997 is our WDO fee increase. The emergency regulation package was submitted. Then our certification of compliance was submitted to make that emergency regulation fee increase to $4 permanent. That was actually taken to Office of Administrative Law last Tuesday. We may have gotten comments from them today. They seem to normally wait till the last minute, but we should be able to notice the industry and send that out for the 45-day comment period tomorrow. That's what our schedule is right now. I just wanted to give you that update. And I think Sabina is going to give you an update on all the regs that need to be changed in order to be in compliance with AB 21338.
Right. So you were sent the updated language for 2138. There's just a couple. You'd already approved the language before. And Dave, when did this go out before?
It went out for public comment 3 weeks ago or so. It was in the notice register February 20.
Okay. So we're still in the middle of public comment period.
Yeah, it just began. Yeah, April 29th, I think it expires.
Okay, so we're in that period, but we're also looking at, we're already getting some kind of feedback from OAL, which is the Office of Administrative Law, from other packets who have already gone through, or we've gotten some informal feedback. And so there's some suggested changes. And then there's also some of the changes we already know really for sure. Other ones we're kind of using other packages to kind of thinking that this is the changes we should make. So we are suggesting these changes now. Then we'll have to go out for a 15-day modified text public comment period. But if we get this language approved today, then we can move it along a little quicker. As we know, July 1st is not very far away.
we have to be in compliance by July 1st, so we need to move it along today because we can't wait to the July. Sorry.
It wasn't me.
It was you that started. Yes, July is just around the corner, so we need to get this moving today because we need to be in compliance with AB 2138 by July 1st of 2020.
Right. So some of the real simple cleanups that I can point out are OAL wasn't interested, didn't like the quote catch-all type of language where if you say if A above doesn't apply above, then X, Y, and Z. So we kind of spelled out the reasons about how A wouldn't be applying, basically. So making it a little bit more clear. It was basically those kind of changes like that, and including professional misconduct and citing to your Practice Act a little bit more for the substantial relationship criteria.
So we need a motion.
I think Sabrina's going to probably read her standard language.
Okay.
Already going into this knowing that we're going to have to do a 15-day modified text.
Right. So it's those long motions you love to read or hear. Did you want me to read it, or you want me to pass it to somebody?
No, please read it. Pay attention.
No more discussion? Okay. I move to approve the proposed text for a 15-day public comment period and delegate to the executive officer the authority to adopt the proposed regulatory changes if there are no adverse comments received during the public comment period, following established procedures and processes in doing so. Also delegate to the executive officer the authority to make any technical or non-substantive changes that may be required in completing the rulemaking file.
I make the motion.
Second.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Okay. You want public comment now? Okay. Any public comment on that? Okay, seeing none. You want to call for the vote?
Okay. Curtis Good?
Yes.
Darren Van Steenwyk?
Yes.
Dave Tamayo?
Yes.
And Mike Duran?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. So it passes. Okay. You done? That's it?
Okay. So we're on to the next one.
Okay.
Legislation.
Legislation update and possible action here.
Okay,
Susan, you
so
handling all those?
sort of, kind of.
Okay.
So the first one is listed is AB 434. This was kind of mentioned. Director Kirchmeier actually mentioned this early as well. Early on, AB 434 is the bill that went into, it was actually chaptered in 2017. It went into effect 1/1/18. It's in regards to ADA compliance. So anything that we put on our website has to be ADA compliant. Any documents from the Attorney General's office, any documents from OAH, and we had to be in compliant with future documents by July 1st, 2019. So we all work together, including the department and control agencies, etc., to get remediation done of future documents. So all of our documents that we now put on the website are ADA compliant. When Kim mentioned this earlier, as I mentioned, now we're in the mode of trying to convert our old documents that are on the website to be ADA compliant. So a couple things I wanted to bring up to you and just make you aware of. In 2011, we had a board meeting where we had some pushback from the industry about having old enforcement documents on our website. As a result, you board members directed staff to take those documents down after 5 years from the effective date. Now that this has come into play, I talked with the director's office, and their position is that based on our primary focus is consumer protection, and that's what we do, we should not take those documents down, and that's the direction that I've been given and they've been given from administration. So what I have in your board packages is a chart from all the programs in DCA. Kim mentioned earlier, Director Kirchmeier mentioned earlier that there's some 2 million documents department-wide that need to be converted. Ours, fortunately, was a very small portion. The cost for remediation for our documents is at $134,000. I have already authorized to go into contract for $65,000 for half of those documents, and then I have commitments from the department that we may be able to get some student assistance to help with the other portion and converting those documents.
And that's when it's expected to be completed by July of.
I'm sorry, yes. That portion
2021.
has to be completed by July 1st of 2021.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions, comments, thoughts? Public? Okay, seeing none. 613.
Okay, next bill on the agenda is AB 613. This is in regards to, this bill was introduced last year. It's in regards to Consumer Price Index and a blanket increase for the department based on this Consumer Price Index. We're not quite sure where that's going to go this session. We'll have to just watch and see what happens with it this session. Okay, should I just go on?
Yes, please. Unless any
Okay.
questions, comments again? Okay, seeing that, go on.
Okay, next one is AB 1024. You saw
Actually,
this.
I would like to see if on 613, it strikes me as a good idea, but then again, I'm not a member of industry. I'm wondering what people think about that. Certainly, it doesn't give us a blank check, but it also would help us keep up with our fees. So.
And I think one other meeting last year when we discussed this, I think I had done the math and it was something like 4 to 8% increase. That's what it would kind of equal out to be.
Wow.
Every 4 years, I believe.
I believe so.
Okay.
So I just kind of wanted to get a feel if the other board members are members of the public, in particular industry reps, are supportive of this, or.
Well, my initial thought is that I'm sorry. My initial thought is that if this is what needs to happen to prevent things like, the emergency WDO fee increase to go from $3 to $4.50 overnight, then that's something that we can, that at least my organization can live with. Again, it's to help keep up with what needs to be kept up with, so there's no major kind of makeup time from there.
Yeah, Chris Reardon, Pest Control Operators of California. We concur with Mr. Van Steen. We looked at that as well, and we didn't think it was unreasonable. We want to make sure we don't get in the whole issue of, the emergency reg again either.
Thank you.
Susan,
Yes.
have you reached out to the author? Because I'm showing that this was held in committee last year.
Right.
So
I don't know. I have not reached out to the author's office, Curtis. I don't know that they plan to move this again. I'm not sure at this point.
okay.
And Chris, I agree with you. We don't want to get in that emergency regulation package thing. Unfortunately, we had the statute capped at $3, so we couldn't do anything other than temporarily do that and then have to do emergency reg. So, moving on to the next one, AB
1024.
1024. This was brought to you last year as well. When this was first introduced last year, this is a bill that would require home inspectors to be regulated and licensed. When this was first brought to you last year, the home inspectors were going to be under the jurisdiction of the Contractor State License Board. The bill has now been changed so that these individuals would be regulated and licensed starting effective 1/1/2025, but they would be a bureau within DCA.
Any questions? Thoughts, comments? Public? Anybody want to weigh in? Chris, any thoughts? Okay. Okay, thank you, Susan.
Next is AB 1616. This bill is in regards to convictions that are expunged. So if there are convictions that are expunged and we have enforcement documents on our website regarding those convictions that are expunged, then we have to take those off the website. Is that the gist of it, Serena?
Yeah, and post the expungements, I think. Medical board already has a statute requiring that, where if you turn in your expungement, they have to post it there with that information. I know that BBS just, I believe, took a position on this bill last week. And their concern was removing discipline documents, and the risk of not protecting the public in case, even if somebody's revoked and, maybe someone goes to look them up and there wouldn't be a license history or information there. And potentially that person could be out there doing unlicensed activity so I think they took an oppose unless amended.
So that would be up to you, board members. If you want to take a position now on this bill, or watch it and wait. Of course, our next board meeting isn't until July.
Thoughts? You want to watch it?
What is the likelihood that it's going to get amended of some sort?
I think this is the companion bill to 2138.
Yes, I would agree.
So more than likely, then it's not going to get. The devil's in the details, but the premise of it's going to be.
I believe so. I think the intent is to continue to remove those barriers like 2138 is. And like I said, medical board already has a similar statute regarding just posting of the expungement. The other added stuff is what Susan pointed out about the removal of discipline.
Chris, is this something that was going to be on your agenda, whether you have a ledge day or not?
Chris Reardon again, Pest Control Operators, California. I just looked at this recently, and I'd be shocked if it wasn't amended. I mean, the implications, when I look at the bill, because the implications of this, and I can't imagine there wouldn't be great interest amongst other people as well. At least that's my thought. So I think we're going to have some room to comment, it seems to me. And here's the other thing too, and I was just going to talk about this. Session this year could change as we're speaking. So in terms of schedules and everything, we don't know what that's going to look like, but I understand this could change.
Yeah, exactly. Any further comments from the board members? Is this something I think maybe we should just watch till for July? Can you make sure it's on the calendar for July? Any other public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none. Might as well stay there, Chris.
The next one is maybe 1788.
If I might, board members, we, as you might imagine, we had a opposed position last year. We don't think this bill is good public policy for various reasons, particularly number one, public health. The bill died last year in Senate Appropriations. The bill was never put on a suspense because it was never officially heard. So it's just sitting in the Senate Appropriations. Our understanding is that the sponsors of the bill with Mr. Bloom have talked to, they continue to talk to the Department of Pesticide Regulation. And what we don't know right now is what those potential amendments are. We had some discussions late last year in August with Mr. Bloom and the sponsors regarding potential amendments that were never taken. So we don't know what they're proposing to do, but at least we understand there's been discussions ongoing with the department about potentially amending that bill. So we're watching very closely until we see, as you might imagine, until we see the language, we're still going to oppose AB 1788.
Any questions? Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none.
Would you
Yes.
mind him commenting? Can he
Yes.
just go straight to 2373?
Do you mind? You want to do that? Okay, we'll bring up 2073.
2373, and that's also, it's a bill sponsored by PCOC, and one of the things we did is, and Susan and I, versus an email, we apologize not to get to you soon. We were sort of under the gun. We wanted to provide language that would produce at least some ability, some training language. And by the way, Susan sent me a note yesterday regarding amended language. I think we're fine with. I think it actually is cleaner than our language.
Yes, because the way 2373 is worded, it puts it basically in a jurisdiction of the county ag commissioners. Our actual BNP code sections for continuing education are 8593. What you board members were provided was a draft that I created yesterday of my recommendation to a new section in our Pest Control Act entitled 8593.3. And basically, this language is exactly what is written with a couple minor edits in the Assembly Bill 2373. So I had reached out to Chris, Reardon, and Darren. They both indicated that they didn't have any problem with this language. I think that this would be more appropriate and in the proper place in our Act book for compliance for our licensees.
Quick question for you in terms of procedure. Did you want to notify the author? Did you want us to send this language? I know sometimes because they're going to want to know where you are anyway, I would imagine.
Whatever you'd prefer, Chris.
We can talk about it. I just was curious.
Yeah, I was hoping that, well, maybe we can get this amended to this, and then maybe we can add those other 4 sections in. I'm trying to get in.
Look, I think we should talk about it. I agree.
Okay.
I agree.
Come on, carry the water for us.
No. I think we found a good author. And
Yeah.
So, by the way, we'll ask that question.
Yeah.
The other
Well,
thing
if that doesn't work, then of course I still need someone that will pick up those sections if we can get them in.
We haven't forgot.
I know.
We haven't forgot.
We need your help.
We're gonna try like heck. I can tell you that. Let me just say one thing on 2373 as well. Depending on what happens with AB 1788, because we will be prepared to amend this bill if we need to address maybe some of the deficiencies of 1788, and depending on how that all plays, we put this vehicle in to deal with that issue as well.
That's
so I just wanted to let the board be aware of that as well.
Good thought. Yes, thank you. Okay. Any further questions from the board members? Public? Any public comments there? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Let's see. So we
Go back to what, 2028?
Yeah, so we skipped over AB 2028.
Yep.
AB 2028 is a bill that would require us to post our board meeting materials on our website 10 days before the board meeting, same as we have to post the notice 10 days before.
Yep. Any comments?
I was wondering how difficult that will be for staff to implement something like that.
I don't know if Sabina wants to comment about other programs. I mean, it's going to be difficult because sometimes things are rapidly changing, and you might have an agenda item that's on the agenda and it's approved and has been published and has been noticed, but things within that typical agenda item are changing.
Well, think of legislation.
Right, think of legislation. Like today, I brought to you my version of 2373. So, I mean, we had on the agenda legislation in general, so we were okay, but then things are constantly changing at the last minute.
Well, right. So any of these bills are amended last night, you wouldn't be able to discuss. You want that material, you'd be more limited in your discussion.
It strikes me as, I mean, I kind of understand the intent, but it strikes me as that the actual effect would be to really slow down the ability of the public to participate in deliberations. So I don't know if there's a particular problem with some agencies that are gaming at and kind of trying to keep people away from the things that they're trying to discuss, but I certainly don't detect that here, and having to yank something off because there's a change in the writing just really strikes me as inefficient and counterproductive.
I would agree.
Well said. Do you think we could share that with the author, our opinions on that?
Absolutely. She can always have discussions with the author's office about your concerns.
Sure.
Contact him on our behalf and raise those concerns that was brought up today?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe there could be an exception to legislation, you know, or something like they could build in an exception to that, in the statute or similar.
Perfect. Okay. Any other comments? Public comments? None, right? Okay.
The last one.
Yeah.
So SB 53. You saw this last year. We've been told by DCA that the author has indicated that it's tabled and they're not going forward with it. This is regards to board meetings, and if you have, it would make a board meeting two-member advisory committees would be a board meeting.
I think it's still showing it's still showing active though, isn't it? I know it was held in committee last year?
Yes.
But it's still an active bill.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments on that bill? Public? Okay, seeing none. Okay, anything else regarding legislation? Anything else you want to bring up? Comment? Public, final opportunity. Chris? Okay. Okay, I did this earlier, but just in case anybody else walked in and missed it, is there any other public comments from the public that wasn't on the agenda? Okay, just want to make sure I covered bases just in case somebody got here late. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any future agenda items? Were we going to discuss 1991? Was there anything you wanted?
Well, I'll certainly bring back an update on all the regs that we're working on right now, including 1970 and all of those. Along with, we'll have updates, of course, to the regulations that we have in place for AB 2138, along with the WDO fee. So that for sure will be on the agenda. Legislation, of course, will be on the agenda. What else did we say?
Will there be at that point in time? Thank you. Where there'll be a maybe this is a question to DPR, feedback from EPA on the worker protection regulation, and how DPR is implementing theirs. Okay, I'd like to at least have that as an option in case we need to incorporate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else there? Susan?
Nothing I can think of.
Okay. Okay, last chance. Public, any? Yes, thank you. Yay. Pegger.
I was just going to say, sometimes state employees have travel restrictions in July if the budget was not passed in time. So for the Mr. Tamayo's request that DPR provide a surface water pyrethroid science as well as enforcement inspection item, it would be best if that was here in October rather than July in Southern California.
Go with that.
I can give the governor a call to straighten things out for you. So, no, obviously, yeah. Within whatever your needs are. So,
Yeah, I made a note, Peggy, to have that on the calendar for October when we're back here.
Okay, before we go to our board calendar, I'm very sad to report we're losing two of our distinguished board members here. And starting to my right here, Mike Duran, who has faithfully served this board for 8 years, and his attendance 100%. So thank you for your service and everything you've done for our industry and the DCA and Structural Pest Control Board. It's been very appreciative working with you, and you've brought a lot of insight. If you'd like to make a comment.
I want to make a small little comment. I want to thank the board, Susan, staff, members from DPR, everybody. It's just wonderful. It's a wonderful learning experience for me, and I believe that most operators or people that are in the industry should take a chance and be on the board. And again, I want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart. It's really been a wonderful experience. Thank you.
Mr. Duran, thank you.
And also, just for we're losing Darren, and thank you, Darren, for your service and everything you've done. I think you only missed one out of a conflict for your schedule, so thank you very much for everything you've done, and thank you for serving and continue on for committee. And I know we'll see a lot of you, and you'll probably be annoying us on the other side and asking a lot of questions, I'm sure. So, if you have any follow-up comments,
You can't get rid of me that easy.
we don't wish to. Dave.
yeah, I just wanted to say, I really appreciated serving with both Mike and Darren. Mike, as a long-standing member of the industry, I think, I always appreciated his perspective on, especially the licensing questions when people would come before us, but sort of looking at both our mission as protecting the consumers, but also, what is the effect that this has on, whoever is coming before what's the effect on their life? And I always really appreciated he came from the perspective, sort of brought us into that perspective. And then, so thank you very much for your contribution to this board. And then, I wanted to also say to Darren, I think you're very strong involvement in the technical aspects of the industry, and that you're very involved in the statewide stuff. I really appreciated your perspective, and and of course also your perspective on, also similar to Mike, and how this affects people's lives of if they're trying to get a license back, and bringing a little bit of that, making sure that we always had that perspective. So, but really strong in consumer protection. So thank you very much. And I know we're not getting rid of you, because you participated before you were on the board, and I fully expect that you'll be a thorn for us for years to come. But thank you very much.
Sorry we didn't have him here, but we will be sending each one of you certificates of appreciation for your service to the Structural Pest Control Board. Sorry we didn't have those here for you, but we will be sending those out to you on our behalf, or on the board's behalf. So thank you. Any public comment? None? You want? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to our calendar. I think.
Okay. So what is already scheduled is for July 2020. We've got July
7th and 8th.
7th and 8th.
It's in Claremont.
Yes, in Claremont. The contract has been sent out to Claremont, to Doubletree. It has not been signed and sent back yet, but it is in BSO hands. Yeah, it's at Business Services right now. then
I've got a question about that July meeting, and I know that a lot of times we'll sort of contract our meetings if it looks like the agenda's to that. If we still have the flexibility to do that, I'd request that if it's going to be one day, that it be the 7th rather than the 8th. But I'll if that can't happen, then I'll adjust my calendar as necessary.
I don't know if we have anyone that's requested reinstatements yet for Southern California. We have one for Southern California in July. Okay. Okay. Similar to today, if we only have one or two, then we'll probably have a one-day meeting, and I'll indicate that your preference then is on Tuesday.
Okay, then October.
Christina, does that work into your plans, or do you have a hotel night stay on the 7th and not the 6th? Starting the 6th. Okay, great. Thank you. October, be back here in Sacramento on the 20th, on Tuesday 20th and Wednesday 21st. And then there's a blank calendar in your board packages for March of 2021.
Do you know what days to meet our calendar schedule?
Well,
for in March.
We're going to have to do just what we've been doing, and that's more mail votes, because we're way beyond the 100 days by not having a January meeting. So March, it would really, you guys try to usually do it in conjunction with PCOC days, but I don't know if that's too far out to know.
Do you want to wait till October? Or
July?
Or July? Yeah.
Sure. If you'd like to wait until July, then we can try and determine then.
Okay.
That might be best because we need to have at least one more board member appointed by then.
Right.
And hopefully we'll have more than just one appointed by then.
Right. And get their input too to what's
Right.
available.
For availability and stuff. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we'll just table that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think that completes our agenda. Any final comments from board?
Not for me.
Okay. 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 Thank you very much for everybody attending. We are officially adjourned. Thank you.